PS2 was kind of a glorious time for RPGs. FF10 and 10-2, Dark Cloud 1 and 2, the Xenosaga Trilogy, SMT Nocturne, Digital Devil Saga 1 and 2, Raido 1 and 2, congrats to us for the remaster, and oh hey, how did this get here? Among these games is Tales of Abyss, one of the games in that era that was held in very high regard. The Tales of series is one of those franchises that existed since the SNES era, starting with Fantasia, then Destiny, Eternia, Legendia, Symphonia, Rebirth, which sadly didn't leave Japan, and this game. Now, I did make a video about Tales of Arise quite a while ago, and I did complete that game, until Bamco made the DLC and made more achievements and ruined it. How was the DLC, by the way? Did not hear much good things about it. Tell me in the comments below. Anyway, Tales of Abyss's story deals with so many themes. Love, friendship, identity, familial bonds, responsibility, beliefs. It sounds very cliche coming from a dude who made a channel about all the things that he cries about online. But it is a legitimately great story. And with the recent release of the Tales of Graces remaster, which I am already enjoying, I have high hopes that this too will get remastered, if not already. I have been making this video for a year. The game's protagonist, Luke, goes through, well, spoiler for the whole video, one of the most well-written journeys of redemption and self-discovery you can experience in a video game. Now, obviously, spoilers for the lot of Tales of Abyss during the video. I do prefer that you've already played Tales of Abyss or is familiar with the game before watching this so we can have a discussion about this character arc. Now, without further ado, we start with the words of Yulia, with words of prophecy and the woman stepping into a light. Then wonderful, glorious Motoi Sakuraba music plays to introduce our main character. Luke's story starts in the kingdom of Kimlaska on a manor owned by Duke Fabre, his father. Luke is summoned to the drawing room and is told that his swordmaster, Van Grants, won't be able to teach him for a while because he is leaving for a mission to look for Phone Master Ion. Phone Master is basically this world's pope, and Van is basically leader of the Phone Master's guard. Which such an important person missing, this is why he himself has to lead the search personally. This is where a few behaviors from Luke will be displayed. He's selfish to an almost childish degree. Luckily, his father chastises him for showing such behavior, even though his mother confides with Luke due to his kidnapping 7 years before the present day. In an ingenious way to start a game's tutorial, Van meets Luke in the manor's courtyard to give him his last session for a long while. The tutorial goes as normal: attack button, defend, using arts, the basics of the basics. Luke actually voices his impatience with the lesson, and the tutorial is ended abruptly by a mysterious song, a spell that's meant to send people to sleep. Van identifies the attacker as Tyr. Affected by the song's effects, Luke moves in to defend Van, but a phenomenon called hyperresonance occurs, and this transports Tyr and Luke into a beautiful valley at night. They are transported to a place called Tataru Valley. To Luke's surprise, he's now in a brand new place, outside of his home, something he's been forbidden in doing for 7 years since his kidnapping. After an argument over the events at the manor, Tyr promises Luke to get him back to his home in Batikal, the capital of Kimlaska.
That was too easy. Nobody can beat us.
Don't blame me if your excitement leads to pain.
At the valley's exit, we find the coachman who confuses us for bandage, which opens up a funny zinger from Tyr.
Don't go comparing me to some pathetic bandit.
Yes, you might upset the bandits.
But unfortunately, to ride this coach, we need an exorbitant amount of money, and Tyr is forced to give a pendant to the coachman. Luke says something incredibly stupid, and they board the coach. After an incident with a military landship chasing bandits, Luke and Tyr learn from the coachman that they've been transported into the wrong country. They are currently in Malkuth, the country Luke's relatives are in danger of going into war with. After this conversation, you are given a choice to either ride the coach or walk to the nearest town. Luke displays some amount of dickishness again. The difference between the choices is if we do choose to walk, we are given a cooking tutorial, and if you choose to just use the coach all the way, you are just transported into the next village. No problem. Due to the unforeseen complication of being in enemy territory, they stop in a village called Engave and plan their next move. Just to be fully transparent, I played this on an emulator because the third-party price of this is ridiculous, and the widescreen patches on the PS2 emulator reveal some interesting details. While exploring Engave, Luke takes an apple from a vendor without, paying for it. He gets scolded by Tyr and the vendor, and Tyr makes a very interesting observation. This gets Luke into trouble, obviously, and when they reach the inn, a congregation of Engave's farmers are complaining about recent events of food theft. The fruit merchant points out Luke, and he's carried like a freaking small animal to the mayor's house. And this is where we meet our personal Satan, voiced by Kirk Thornton in English and... Wait a second. Takehiko Kuyasu? Holy shit, Dio Brando himself! Don't worry, I do enjoy both performances because I am using a patch that adds voice acting to the skits, so I get to enjoy both. Amongst the arguments, Tyr explains that they were supposed to head to another town called Casidonia, but boarded the wrong coach. Jade explains that his unit, the land ship that chased away the Darkwings being the bandits that were in suspicion of stealing food. Also, trust me, they're also going to be very important later on in the story. This explanation clears Luke of any suspicion from being the food thief. And then, Phone Master Ion? presents evidence that creatures named Cheagles may be the ones taking food from Engave. Wait, wasn't he missing? Which is what Luke asks to a phone master guardian they encounter in the inn. The game doesn't tell you who she is yet, but her name is Anis, and she is one of the best characters in the game. Luke, still irritated by being called a thief, decides to head to the Cheagle Woods and investigate the food raids. Side note here, we need to talk about an important skit. This skit is about Luke's diary and why he needs to write in it every day. The reason being in case he loses his memory again. That's right, when he was abducted and once recovered, he lost his memory. Amnesia, normally in video games, is used for blank slate POV characters so you can easily slide into the role. It's not a bad practice by any means, but this game does use Luke's memory loss as an important part of the game's first quarter. With a short walk around the world map, we reach the Cheagle Woods and find Ion, fighting some wolves and nuking them with a phonic art. Phonic arts are the magic system of this game. He tuckers himself out because of the art. By the way, you can actually use that skill in combat, given you've learned the correct skills. After some introductions and the revelation that Tyr is actually Van's sister, who tried to assassinate him, Luke agrees to accompany Ion to the Cheagle's nest, showing that aside from being abrasively snobbish, he's got a bit of a good side on him. They chase a Cheagle, oh what a squeaky noise it makes, down the woods and find their dwelling in a giant hollow tree. The Cheagle Elder reveals that the reason they're stealing food from the village is due to the Ligers that moved in due to their original home being burned down. Now, as an intermediary to possibly communicate and make a compromise with the Ligers, the Elder tasks the Cheagle that accidentally burned down the Ligers' original home to accompany you. He's named Mew, and unfortunately, Luke treats him very, very poorly in this early point of the game. Upon reaching the Liger's den and facing the Mother Liger, Ion attempts to negotiate with the Mother Liger, but she's not in a negotiating mood after the burning of her home, and she just laid eggs. And these Liger cubs are more prone to hunting down flesh, meaning if they don't kill her and destroy her eggs, the Cheagles and Engave are doomed. The Mother Liger then roars and it causes some rubble to fall on Mew. And yes, it did fall on Mew, not Ion. But Luke deflects and he says he's protecting Ion. I think at this point, I feel it's very important to point out these moments. Luke is even apprehensive of the idea that they need to kill the Liger Queen and her eggs. Also, yes, this game uses kill, not defeat. Tales of Abyss is not afraid of straight up telling you what they do. It's even more of an exception when they tell you that they need to knock down people. The Liger Queen fight is pretty tough. Not helped that I started my game in hard mode. She has some dangerous attacks, including a stomp attack that makes you stagger upwards, a thunder beam that will kill you if you do not guard, and occasionally a thunder wave attack that will hit Tyr if you're unlucky. This is where I needed to swallow my pride and accept that I'm out of touch and need to put back time in the game to get a hold of the combat again. I grinded a bit and reduced the difficulty. So I tried the fight again and luckily...
Hey, what the hell? It's not dying!
This isn't good. Our attacks aren't hurting it at all.
So do something!
Allow me.
Who are you?
Leave the inquiry for later. I'll use phonic arts to take care of this. You make sure I have time to cat.
You can't order me.
Let's leave this to him. We'll buy time by taking on the Liger Queen.
I know,
is able to take the Queen's HP to half. In the middle of the fight, we're joined with a level 45 Jade who can decimate the Mother Liger with ease.
Well, that was pitiful.
Whoa! Did you see that?
He's definitely not an ordinary phonist.
After the fight, Luke expresses his distaste on killing the Liger, and Tyr comments on how soft he is. Jade ships them for some reason, and asks Anis to do something for him. Upon your return to the Cheagle's home, Mew is exiled. tasked to serve under Luke for a year, a punishment for his burning of the Liger's original home. Back at the forest entrance, Malkuth's soldiers along with Annie's and Jade's landship, the Tartarus, await you. Jade then arrests Luke and Tyr, placing them under his charge. It is then revealed to Luke and us the player that a big war is in danger of breaking out, and Jade is asking Luke as the Duke's son for assistance. You're given time to explore the ship and Annis gives you a tour. She's very pushy. Don't worry, none of the adult characters actually treat her flirting seriously, thank God. This tour gives you perspectives from Ion and Jade, and even a neat interaction with a Malkuth recruit. After roaming around the ship, Jade explains that a few recent conflicts are in danger of causing a full-scale war, and Ion was asked by Malkuth's emperor to go to Kimlaska and deliver a message proposing a new peace treaty. Ion went missing because parts of this game's main religion, the Order of Lorelei, are pushing for this war, and they won't allow Ion to negotiate for peace. As for the reason they won't allow Ion to negotiate for peace, we'll get to that in a while. Because of the disputes between the two countries, Jade needs an intermediary to join them, go through parts of Kimlaska, and deliver the Emperor's message. Luke says some dumb shit about bowing down for help, and Jade, God bless him, counters with sincerity and a lot of sarcasm, bowing to Luke and requesting his aid. Luke agrees and is defeated by Jade's overwhelming sass. Unfortunately, the journey to deliver the Emperor's message is not gonna be smooth as they're attacked by the Oracle Knights, the Order of Lorelei's military. Among the soldiers are the God Generals, the leaders and the strongest of the Oracle Knights. Why the church needs a military, I do not know. A God General called Largo fights against Jade. And here we learn of Jade's title of Necromancer, rumored of taking corpses in the battlefield. He's then nerfed by something called a phone slot seal, solidifying his place in your party. Jade orders Mew to breathe fire on a phone stone in the ceiling, causing a flash, and tasks Anis to take Ion and run. The flash allows Jade to stab Largo, and Luke is shocked to see this. A plan is made to retake control of the Tartarus. But because it's overrun by Oracle Knights and monsters, we can't enter the bridge directly. If you're wondering why the Oracle Knights have monsters on their side, one of the God Generals can communicate with monsters. You'll meet her later. Don't worry about it. Anyway, we make our way to enter the bridge from above. Tyr puts the guards to sleep. The plan initially goes very smoothly and Luke is left to guard the bridge's entrance. But due to his carelessness...
Ah! Ah! Don't come any closer!
I love how the game handles Luke's reaction to his first kill. He's visibly shaken and shocked by this, and he'll be forced to fight even more because if he doesn't, he'll die. The reality of where he is dawns on him. It's very abrupt and very sudden. He didn't even have any time to process. But as Tyr explains to him, this is how their world works. Monsters or bandits attack villagers, soldiers go to war. Their world is in a terribly harsh situation and where you have to take up arms to survive. Jade is perplexed with Luke's lack of worldly knowledge, surprised at his utter ignorance. Tyr informs Jade of Luke's isolation after his abduction and the memory loss the incident caused him. This is what Luke's first arc of the story is about, showing how much of an incredibly flawed person he is, while showing him being friendly to their gardener, merciful to baby animals, being able to show concern for others. He just has a terrible way of showing and expressing his feelings.
Oh, thank you so much.
No, I'm not. Now quit saying...
Okay.
Luke still insists that he'll fight, and Jade triggers a command in the Tartarus, causing it to stall. We reach the emergency entrance of the ship, and the fight breaks out. One of the God Generals, Legreta, recognizes Tyr and the party is forced to a standoff. Until suddenly, Jesus Christ, that entrance is kind of ridiculous. someone drops in to knock down Legreta, grab Ion, and salvage the situation. This is Guy. He was introduced in Luke's manor earlier in the game. He's Luke's best friend, and this story will only help in endearing you to Guy. The amount of things he did in the time he arrived is kind of ridiculous. Jade takes Arietta hostage since she's the one in control of the monsters, and orders them back into the ship. Guy tells them how he ended up in Malkuth, and we're found by Oracle soldiers. Luke is still hesitant to fight, hurt, and possibly kill other people. In a fight with their pursuers, he hesitates in killing an Oracle soldier and causes injury to Tyr. In a campfire, we get a few scenes giving more depth to everyone we are currently with. Luke oddly clues into Tyr acting strong, Ion accepting that his religion, the one he represents, no longer share his beliefs. Jade tells Luke that his reaction and aversion to killing is normal, in a very harsh and kind of insulting tone. And Guy...
It must have been tough for you, suddenly thrown out into the world like this.
I had no idea things were this bad outside of the city.
Sometimes you can earn bounties for killing monsters and bandits. Outside the towns, killing people isn't considered a crime, as long as it's not proven to be for personal malice.
How many people have you killed?
Who knows? Less than that soldier right there, I imagine.
Aren't you scared?
Of course I'm scared. That's why I fight. Because I don't want to die. I still have things to do.
This clues us into the life Guy had lived before. This is why I fight. Because I don't want to die. A very simple, flat answer to the harsh reality they're in. It's the morning after, and Jade creates a formation that allows Luke to be protected and keeps him from trouble. This also keeps him from fighting. Luke protests, proclaiming he's not afraid to kill, and is then told what killing a person means.
If I have to fight to survive, then that's what I'll do. I'm not gonna hide in the corner.
To kill someone means to rob them of their future, even if it is to protect yourself.
And it can earn you the hatred of others.
Are you prepared to deal? Can you face that responsibility without running away, without making excuses?
You said yourself, you aren't killing people because you want to. I've made up my mind.
But
I don't see any problem with that. We'll give Luke a chance to show us his resolve.
Just don't push yourself too hard, Luke.
We reach St. Bina and it's crawling with Oracle soldiers. Lucky enough, the mayor of Engave, Rose, arrives with her wagon. She agrees to take us into the village, and she mentions something about these events not being in her birthday score. The score is something that we're going to be very, very involved with. But that's for later. With the help of Rose, we've entered St. Bina successfully and talked to the people in charge, the McGoverns. They gave us a letter from Anis telling that she's moved on to a place called Kitesur. After confirming Anis's movement, we prepare to leave town. Luckily, the God Generals are preparing to leave town as well. And funny enough, this is where the game actually introduces us to the rest of the God Generals. Largo the Black Lion, who's alive, great. Lagreta, she is Tyr's mentor and has the most ridiculous name in the game. This, who knows Jade for some reason. Sink, who seems to be in charge. And Arietta, who's related to the Liger Queen and is very angry at us because, you know, we kind of killed it. One of them, however, is absent, Ash the Bloody, who was introduced earlier in the Tartarus. Jade has an odd reaction to seeing him then. At Ion's suggestion, the party rests at the inn. Jade asks Ion where he was taken to, and we're informed that he's been taken to a Sephiroth. No, not that one. Basically, Sephiroths are part of the planet where energy gathers. Luke asks about Jade's phone slot seal and is embarrassed when his concern is pointed out. Jade answers frankly and with more sass. Then Jade hints to something. If you're already familiar with the events of the game, it's very surprising to me that Jade already hints at a lot of future events. I won't tell what those events are yet, but he's been hinting that he's already in the know for some reveals that are reserved to some characters for some time. After we rest in the inn, it's off to Fubras River to reach Kaitsur. Sadly, crossing through the Fubras River, Arietta bars us from exiting the river, and we're informed that the Liger Queen we killed was the one who helped raise her after the previous war. We avoid a fight with her after an earthquake opens a geyser of gas called the miasma, a poison from underground. Unable to move fast enough, Tio recites a special phonic hymn that conjures a barrier. Jade tries to kill Arietta, but Luke and Ion protest. Arietta is spared, much to Jade's dismay. We reach the border town of Kaitsur, and when you attempt to cross, we meet up with Anis, who's being blocked from crossing by a soldier. After some banter, Luke is attacked by one of the god generals, the one missing from Saint Bina, Ash the Bloody. Due to the surprise, Luke wasn't able to see him, and luckily, Van is there to stop Ash's attack. The party informs Van of the Emperor's letter for a peace treaty, and Van gives us passports so we can get to Kaitsur's port. Unfortunately, when you reach Kaitsur's port, Arietta spirits away the ship's head engineer and very much destroys the ship. Arietta, escaping from Van, informs the party to come to Coral Castle, the former family vacation home, the place where he was found 7 years ago when he was abducted. Exploring Coral Castle, they discover a bizarre machine in where Jade vaguely implies he notices. Guy tries to question Jade about this, but then, after a startled Anis accidentally jumps on Guy,
What?
That was more than just a startled reaction. What's wrong?
I'm sorry. My body just reacted. Sorry about that, Anis. Are you...
Yeah. Did something happen? That didn't look like a mere aversion to female.
I'm sorry, I really don't know. I wasn't like this as a kid. But there's a part of my memory that's completely missing. The cause may lie there.
Your memory is messed.
I don't think it's the same thing. I'm only missing the memory from a single moment.
How do you know it's just one moment?
I know. The only thing that's missing is the memory of when my family died. Enough about me. I want to hear what's on your mind, Colonel.
Just as you'd rather not talk about your past, there are some things I wish not to talk about as well.
one of the characteristics of Guy is his physical aversion to women. No, he doesn't dislike women. In fact, according to him, he's quite fond of them. No, this is a traumatic response. And no, I'm not armchair diagnosing him. This comes from my future knowledge of events in the game, details of which I'll reveal later on. We reach the top of the castle and Luke gets snatched by Arietta's griffon. He's then taken back to the machine where this does something about synchronizing his phone slots. Look, this is something that's too complicated for me to explain. So this is why you just have to play the game. For now, the rest of the party goes back to save Luke. Guy tussles with Sync and is able to take a disc from him. They fight further and Guy knocks off Sync's mask and sees something. Luke is released and we head back to the roof again, where we now fight Arietta. So, this is one of the first fights where you fight three things at once, and they're not the two other monsters are not grunts. They are bosses. So you have to prioritize who you have to attack first. This is where the strategy option of Tales of is very useful. I complained about this in the Arise review, where the strategy function does not work as well. Bizarrely enough, in the older Tales of games, the strategy function is so simple yet works as well as you thought it would. It's fine. It works. Unlike in Arise, where you can't even make people focus on one thing. Anyway, after defeating Arietta and her monsters, Jade tries to kill her again, but Ion intervenes again. So the Order of Lorelei can try her like a human being. Van arrives very late and asks you if you want to return to the port on coach. There's actually a side boss I want to try. It's actually located at the entrance of this dungeon, so...
This is my failure.
Okay, I'm going back for this later in the game. Well, that was stressful. Okay, so there's a detail I haven't mentioned yet. Throughout the game so far, Luke has been hearing voices since his kidnapping. We are not told who this is yet, but it's going to be very important. We roam around the ship and talk to the party. Yeah, we've already boarded the ship. I have to cut a lot of things, and if you really are curious of what those things in between are, just play the game. You can find a way. Hey, maybe a remaster will be released soon. We roam around the ship and talk to the party. Guy asks if he remembers when they first met and comments that he's completely different. Luke reassures Ion that the peace talks with Luke's uncle will be fine. Anis hits on Luke. Again, it's a character thing. Tyr teaches Luke about 7 phonists and apologizes for not taking his memory loss seriously. It's actually kind of a sweet moment. She runs in embarrassment afterwards. It's really cute. And Jade...
What'd you do if you weren't really you?
Huh? What are you talking about?
Never mind. It was a stupid question. Forget I said anything.
After talking to most of your party and heading to the deck, Luke hears the voice again, takes control, and tries to test his hyper-resonance. Van, witnessing this, helps him control it. Van tells Luke that both his father and uncle, the king, knew about his power, and that may have been the reason he was abducted. Van then suggests that this is a form of unfair imprisonment and use his status of successfully bringing a possible peace treaty between countries to free himself from it, claiming that this will make Luke a hero. That's a very Palpatine thing to do, Van. That's kind of suspicious. These whispers Van has been feeding Luke has clearly affected him, even muttering about it landing in Casidonia. We almost get robbed, and luckily, Tyr single-handedly saved our wallet. Oh, by the way, the robbers were the Darkwings. Now, Jade was also there, and if you're wondering why he didn't do anything...
By the way, Colonel, why did you just stand by and watch as she did that?
Oh no, you got me. It looked like it would be so amusing.
What the? You...
Now we need to see the data from the discs we got from Sync, so we need to ask for help. From Waluigi and Wario's long-lost brother. Yeah, no, look at him. His name is Astor. Anyway, when we hand him the disc, we're given the contents of the disc's data. Then he laughs like this.
Anytime you need something, please, don't hesitate to let me know.
Would you believe if I told you he's not a villain? Because he's not. He's actually just an honest merchant that opened Casidonia as a neutral zone of trading in the world. With the data in hand, we head for the port and finally we head to Batical. But Sync ambushes the party and plants a seal on Guy. They retreat to the ship and manage to get away from Sync. But this pursues and is ordered to get rid of the documents from the disk. Unfortunately, part of the documents were lost in the scuffle against Sync. We're given a crash course in isophones, thank you writers, for the ingenious usage of Luke's memory loss as a bridge to teach players how the science of this world works. We're then attacked by Oracle soldiers, commanded by this.
Master, what do we do? I can't swim!
Shut up and drown.
Luke, this is not the time to be a dick. This needs to be taken care of, so we need to reach the deck to meet him. Damn, that's a laugh. Same dude who voiced Kane Highwind, guys. When you meet him, this gets a hilarious ribbing from Jade, and we get to fight his giant robot. This thing is tough and very resistant to physical attacks. Make sure to have Jade in your party so he can nuke it with spells, and you're a meat shield, unless you can use the game's FOF mechanic. When you finally beat him, he takes a dive in the ocean, but Jade ensures the party that he won't die from it. Sure. We finally reach Patical, and after being welcomed by two of Kim Laska's army's officials, Luke finally sees what the outside of his manor looks like, mentioning that he has no memories of ever being outside. And I really like this one skit that emphasizes those feelings. It happens the first time we enter Patical. Luke is clearly feeling a bit down, maybe because he can't remember anything, or that he has doubts that he'll ever win his freedom. Guy, being his best friend, suggests to sightsee for a while, and the party agrees. This is one of the advantages I got from using a modded ISO. The voice-acted skits give more depth to these tiny details. Yes, they are missable, and some of them are very minor, but the characterization you get from these skits are phenomenal. It's really unfortunate that the English localization skipped these because the English cast is amazing. From these early interactions, you can see that Luke is very bad at communicating and expressing his feelings. He needs people to bounce off of to be understood. He's not a good person per se right now, but it shows that he has a lot to learn and he has the capability to be better. All he needs is a little push. Luke and the party crashes an audience the king is having with Grand Maestro Mose. Up until now, he's only been mentioned being the one who's pushing for the war. Now, we have a face to associate with it. All in all, Mose is the leader of a faction of the Order of Lorelei who's, well, loyal to him. They follow an edict that strictly follows the score. Owen, he's also Tyr's boss, and we actually reach him straight up flying to the king, informing that Endgame is a military supply base when there weren't even much soldiers stationed in it. The lying sack of shit. Luckily, Luke and the others put a stop to this, and with the help of Ion, we finally delivered the Malkuth Emperor's letter. So, what now? The party decides to visit Luke's manor, and they're met with Luke Fabre and General Cecile. The Duke thanks Guy for bringing Luke back home, and he asks where Van is. He then accusatively asked if Tyr is conspiring with Van. This very much confuses her. Not explaining any further, he heads to the port, and we're left to explore the manor. If you enter the drawing room, which you will, you'll meet Natalia for the first time. She is the princess of Kim Laska, and apparently is engaged to Luke. She mentions something about a childhood promise, but Luke doesn't remember. I love that this game introduces her as a very high-strung and even a sheltered princess. But she really isn't. She's just kind of clueless, and the game does a very good job in showing how much of a great human being she is. Natalia then explains why the Duke is kind of on edge about Van. And it's because he's suspected to be the one behind Luke's disappearance. 7 years ago, Coral Castle, memory loss, that horrible thing. Then Natalia just says this all of a sudden.
Luke, don't tell me you've taken advantage of one of your servant girls.
Lady, that is not okay. Jade explains what likely will happen to Van, and this spurs the party to arrange another meeting with the king. But before all of that, it actually happens the next day. But before all that, Tyr apologizes to Luke's mother, Suzanne, who's a very gentle soul. She tells her to, not try to assassinate Van anymore. Needless to say, Luke is very lucky to have a mother like this. When you head to Luke's room, the party splits up, with Guy reporting to the Duke, Tyr reporting to Mose about her other mission, she tried to assassinate Van on her own, and with Anis, Ion, and Jade leaving as well. Tyr tells Luke to take care of his mother, and Luke reassures her that it's not her fault that his mother fell ill, explaining that his mother had a weak constitution to begin with. The day after, Luke is summoned to the castle and is informed that they have agreed to the peace treaty and to send aid to a city called Xeriuth that has been bathed by the miasma. Because of Van's arrest, the king proposes that if Luke becomes King Laska's goodwill ambassador, he will be set free to aid with Xeriuth. But besides this, there is also another reason.
Rita, there's actually a reason why you must be the one to fulfill this role.
What?
Look at this phone stone. This is part of Yulia Juez's 6th phone stone, which fell into our nation's territory.
Tyr, read the score that is written on the lower portion of this phone stone.
Yes, Your ND 2000. In Kimlaska shall be born the scion of Lorelai's power. He will be of royal blood with hair of red. He shall be called the light of the sacred flame, and he will lead Kimlaska Landvaldir to new prosperity. ND 2018. The young scion of Lorelai's power shall bring his people to the minor city. There, and the rest is missing.
That's kind of weird. Why is the rest of this prophetic score missing? After the audience, Luke meets Van in his cell in the castle. The prospect of being a hero excites him, his ego in full tilt. Van invites Luke to join him in Dath as an Oracle Knight, telling him the rest of the score.
But going to Xeriuth won't do. You heard Yulia Juez's score, did you not?
Yeah, it said I'd bring prosperity to Kimlaska and stuff.
The score continues. The youth will turn power to calamity and be as a weapon of Kimlaska. Those in the upper ranks of the Order believe you will bring war to the Rupnica Plains.
He tells Luke that he wants to save him from his fate, so he proposes that he use his hyperresonance to remove the miasma from Xeriuth. He also confesses to be the one who kidnapped him 7 years ago. Because according to him, Luke underwent painful hyperresonance experiments when he was a kid and wanted to escape to Dath. Remember this for later. He tells him that he needs him, that he needs Luke. Notice that he didn't actually tell Luke what he needs him for. Okay, I've mentioned it again, so this is a good time to establish something very important to the story. Let's talk about the score. A score in this world is an accurate list of events that will happen within a person's lifetime. Yes, accurate. The one read to everyone in the throne room is part of something called a planet score, or the planet score. It lists the events that will happen in the planet. This is a part of their religion and a very normal part of life in Oldrant. That's the name of the planet. And if you can recall what Rose said in Saint Bina, a person has their score for that year read every year. This is called a birthday score. The score is an important part of the daily lives of people here in Oldrant, and we'll hear more about how it's been integrated into the lives of its citizens later on. We meet with the rest of the people who's going to Xeriuth, and we're informed that Moses' people have ships that have been surveying the area. Jade then makes a plan to use a decoy ship that Van decides to board with a unit of soldiers to make it look legitimate. We head to the city's entrance to prepare for our departure, but Anis runs towards us and informs that Ion's been kidnapped by the Darkwings, and we can't leave because Sync is patrolling the entrance. Not having any other option to exit the city, Guy suggests a passage via an old factory. We enter the old factory, unfortunately with no Cameron Mitchell or Frank Stallone in sight. No one's going to understand that reference. Guy explains how the factory is built upon the city walls until Natalia surprises them. Yeah, Natalia was also there when Luke was being palpatined by Van a second time. Natalia uses what she overheard from that conversation to extort her way into the party.
Ionian Sergeant Hans Tatlin, Oracle Knights Phone Master Guard wins!
That's way too long.
The factory itself is very dingy, but is well designed, with puzzles related to using Muse fire to light up oil drums and pushing switches that enables lifts and gondolas. The boss for this dungeon is impressively designed. A monster that looks like a slime initially, but is actually a spider that's been covered in chemicals that's been left in the factory. The boss itself doesn't really have much going on for it. It doesn't have a specific weakness or strength, and its magic defense is 60 points lower than its physical attack, so you'll need Jade again. Just make sure to avoid the spells it casts. Finally, exiting the factory, we encounter the God Generals, who's holding Ion hostage. Luke charges, and we finally see Ash's face. Ash has an uncanny likeness to Luke. Everyone is shocked by this reveal, except for Jade. The God Generals unfortunately get away with Ion. Jade makes Luke decide their next action and reminds him that he's the Kimlaskan ambassador, the leader of the entourage. Luke decides to go by land by harshly lashing out. It's not his best moment. He's clearly still rattled that Ash looks so much like him. En route to Macedonia, the party decides to stop at a desert oasis. The oasis has a giant crystal that forms a lake around it, making it an ideal stop for many adventurers. Luke then experiences a headache being contacted by Ash. He informs us that Ion is in a place called the Zao Ruins. There's not really anything special about Zao Ruins as a dungeon. You do get an ability for Mew that allows him to use a sonic spinball to destroy boulders, but pretty much it's just a run-of-the-mill ruins. Why these ruins are here may be related to why they took Ion to this place. In the depths of the ruins are three of the God Generals, Largo, Sync, and Ash, alongside Ion, whom they're using to open these doors. Ion previously informed us that this was what he was being used for as well when he was taken by the God Generals earlier. These gates are called Sephiroth gates. Sync and Largo fight to have Ion work on opening the door. These two love using arts that knock you away, with Sync going after any casters with horrifically high damage attacks, and Largo being a lumbering tank. I got beat up the first time around, so I needed to do some grinding. Luckily, there's a save point that heals before the fight, so if you needed to do some grinding anyway. We beat Largo in Sync, but not without difficulties, and Ash charges, clashing with Luke performing the same move. Sync stops the fight before Ash says anything else, proposing to let them go in exchange for Ion, and they all agree. Finally reaching Macedonia, Luke gets another headache. This time, caused by Ash manipulating Luke's body to point his sword towards Tyr. His resistance puts a strain on his body and he faints. Jade hints that he has an idea of what's happening but doesn't tell them since A. Luke is unconscious and B. he's not sure yet. It wouldn't really help them at the moment. After a short incident with Guy and the curse slot, we are finally on track for Axeriuth. The delays of not being able to meet with Van really upsetting Luke. Arriving at Dio Pass, the last place we need to get through before Axeriuth, it is here that Luke's behavior is in its most insufferable state. Even saying that they wasted time saving Ion. He gets rightfully chastised by everyone, being reminded that this peace treaty would never have happened without Ion in the first place. This arrogant, spoiled behavior present in a lot of scenes previously. The promise of becoming a hero and Van's praise fully getting into his head. This horrible attitude against Ion worsening as we reach the pass's peak, with Ion exhausted but Luke begrudgingly agreeing to rest. Tyr points this out to Luke but he dismisses it completely. He is utterly rotten and it's really hard to watch. At the other end of the pass, we're ambushed by Legreta, another god general and Tyr's mentor. She calls out to Tyr and they get into an argument, with Tyr asking why they took Ion to the Sephiroths.
I'm under orders from Grand Maestro Mose. What about you? Why are you kidnapping Ion and traveling to the Sephiroth?
To win freedom and free will for human beings.
What do you mean?
This world is completely controlled by the score. People read the score for anything they do. The score rules their lives. Don't you think that's wrong?
The score doesn't exist to control people. It's merely a tool to help them follow the correct path.
Perhaps for you, Phone Master, but most people depend on the score. It controls them. The worst cases consult the score to see what they should have for dinner. You are no different.
We don't go that far, but if the score shows the future, then it's best to live as it says.
The score you get read on your birthday is a useful reference.
Yes, and you hear your life score from the moment you're born, so...
In the end, relying on the score makes life easier. Mind you, the scores other than Yulia's are vague and hard to understand.
That's what I'm talking about. This world is mad. Someone has to change it.
She engages a fight against us, and this fight is hard as bones. If you're not able to pile on her, she'll be able to pick down your party members. Her normal pistol attacks hit really fast and hit really hard. It really did not help that I did not have enough items in this fight as well. Also, the game allows her to cast while being hit, so while you're attacking, there's a giant chance that you'll be hit by something really nasty. So, I failed a few times, so off to grinding again. I got through the fight, finally, and afterwards, Legreta calls Luke a reject, with Jade interrupting about forbidden technology. Luke becomes frustrated by being uninformed of the situation, not knowing what Legreta meant, and Jade displays anger for the first time in this game. To be fair, not everyone really knows what Legreta meant at this point. Natalia, Tyr, Guy, and Anis also doesn't know what that means. But Luke goes full waso.
Everybody betrayed me. I fed up with this world.
Complaining that no one is respecting his authority as the Kimlaskan ambassador. Claiming that Van was the only one who acknowledged him. And let's talk about that for a second. Luke was abducted 7 years ago by Van himself. And when he returned home, he never talked and could barely move on his own, regressing to that of an infant. He was forbidden to leave his home and taught the most basic things like how to walk, to talk. They even needed to teach him to remember his parents' faces. There was barely any space for him to learn anything else. And like manners, those are developed by interacting with others. And sadly, the only ones near his age to interact with were Natalia and Guy. Van during these years was his swordmaster, and we can assume that some of the fondness Luke has was from these times of training. Going back to the moment in the ship to Macedonia where Van tells Luke that his powers are special and can make him a hero does give Luke some validation. But this is not what he needs. Van makes these promises of escaping to Dath, freeing Luke from being a weapon, or being a hero. These are all made to placate him and doesn't improve Luke at all. He learns nothing from it. What this does is feed Luke's ego, and his appointment as ambassador doesn't help at all. The other bad thing about Van's grooming, yes, it is grooming, for what, you'll know later on, is that it makes Luke dismiss all of the criticism he's receiving from anyone, pushing away the people who actually do care about him. It feels like I'm spoiling things that's going to happen later on, but hey, we're close to Xeriuth. Finally, reaching Xeriuth, we find it shrouded in miasma, the citizens falling sick from inhaling it. Luke is once again chastised for saying terribly insensitive things. Guy tries to cheer Luke up from the previous events, but Luke gives another tirade about him being the ambassador and it's not being his job to help injured people in Xeriuth. Guy is angered by this and tells Luke to think about what he just said. Oh no, what's this named NPC child doing here? Please go home. Oh god, I hope nothing bad happens to him. Hearing there are people stuck in the mines,
Look, Sergeant Grits!
No. No, that's not your name. Namco Bandai, please, if ever this is the next remaster, please do not rename this man. Hi. God, Jesus Christ. Hi, man. Informs Tyr about a mission given to her by Mose and leaves with Hi man to report to the Vanguard unit that was accompanying Van in the decoy ship. Because of this sudden development in her mission, we have to go into the mines and save the workers without Tyr. Luckily, there really isn't anything super special in the mines, it's just a very short dungeon. The miasma has already spread within the mines, and with more aggressive monsters, the workers trapped in the mine are unable to leave due to injury and sickness due to the miasma. Sapped of their strength, they are left to wait for aid. Upon reaching the workers, everyone disperses to aid them. Meanwhile, Ash screams into Luke's head, warning him to not search further into the mine. Luke, eager to meet Van, dismisses him. A skit with Luke and Ion shows us that Luke is still very fixated on finding Van. The earlier scoldings from Dio Pass still lingers within him, thinking Van will treat him better, saying he'll know what to do. Ion reminds him that the injured workers need help and that he is the ambassador and he needs to act independently. But unfortunately, Luke dismisses him. Ash warns Luke again to not come closer to Van, and he dismisses him again. Van tricks Ion into opening the gate to the Sephiroth. Ash warns Luke again, telling him that he'll destroy Axeriuth. Luke ignores him again. Ion tells Luke to wait for everyone before doing anything. Luke exclaims that Van knows what to do and they can save Axeriuth. You know, it's funny. You see, in the skit translation, Luke says, wait and see. What he actually says in the skit is, if you follow Master, you'll understand, showing Luke completely dependent on Van's approval and decisions. Van instructs Luke to use the control panel on the passage ring to neutralize the miasma in Axeriuth. Ion questions this. Luke brags. Meanwhile, Tyr arrives with Ash to join the others, warning about Van's ultimate plan. Van triggers a code. Foolish replica Luke. A code that would overload Luke's hyperresonance. The code word, a blatant declaration of his disrespect to Luke. Van discarding Luke after turning him into a bomb. He escapes, taking Ash along with his exit. Tyr using phonic arts to save everyone near them from the fall, but eventually... Axeriuth is destroyed, along with the child who came to visit his father, sinking into the bottomless sea of mud and poison. The party lucks out in finding the Tartars that trapped with them. Tyr suggests they go to a place within the Qliphoth called Julia City. Tyr explains the history of the Qliphoth and the land where they were, in here called the Outer Lands. The Outer Lands being suggested by Julia, a religious figure, as a way to escape the miasma that was spread throughout the Qliphoth. The Outer Lands being supported by the Sephiroths, light-like pillars that are holding the lands above, one of which Luke destroyed at Van's behest. Luke, still confused, can't accept the fact that he caused this tragedy, and he lashes out on everyone. He blames Van. He blames everyone for being unable to stop him. Everyone leaves in disappointment and disgust, except for one, Mew. The only one who does understand, being the one who accidentally burned the Ligers' forest, making them move into their own forest. Arriving in Julia City, everyone heads to the mayor's office, except for Luke, who's still apprehensive of his treatment. Ash arrives. Amused, Luke is still calling Van Master after what he did to him. Luke's tirade of not taking responsibility infuriates Ash, finally revealing to Luke,
That's right! You're a second-rate copy of me! A mere replica. You're lying. It's not true. It's not true!
They clash. Depending on your performance, you can either win or lose, but Luke's consciousness will still fade afterwards. And I suggest that you seek a way to play this game. If a remake or remaster is announced, wait for that, find an old PS2 copy, emulate, just find a way to play this game. This is one of the many twists that this game offers, and it is absolutely worth your time. I assure you, you will love this main cast and its story. Following Luke's loss of consciousness from his fight with Ash, Luke awakens and we're now controlling Ash. With Ash planning to go to a place called Belkend to learn more about Van's plans. He then uses the Tartarus and the Sephiroth to return to the Outer Lands with Natalia, Jade, Anis, Ion, and Guy begrudgingly joining to keep an eye on Ash. Tyr stays because, well, Julia City is where she lives, and Mew stayed because he is loyal to Luke. We love our precious little boy. Oh, I guess I have to explain how Luke can see through Ash's eyes. They're perfect replicas and disadjusted Luke's phone slots. That's how Ash is able to talk to Luke with his mind, and how Luke is able to see and hear what Ash learns in these moments. If these terms are unfamiliar to you, then yeah, you just have to play the game. In Belkend, they meet a scientist named Spinoza, with Ash revealing that the man was involved in his kidnapping. Jade tells Spinoza that replicating living things are forbidden, but Spinoza instead reveals Jade's past as the father of Fomicry, the technology that was made to create Luke. Jade fully accepts his responsibility in this, and I really love this quote from him.
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'm not interested in mutual wound licking. I have no intention of covering for someone just because they've committed the same sin as I.
Spinoza then accidentally lets slip that they're recording replica information for Van. Realizing his mistake, he runs like a weenie and Ash gives chase. Shocked of Jade's reputation and former work, the party confronts him of his past as the creator of Famicry, stating a time that he cared more for his own desire than the ethical problems that would arise from the things that he made. From within Ash's mind, Luke laments that everyone left to help Ash out, and Ash points out that even though he was their enemy, they still ultimately chose to join him. Of course, this was to find out Van's plan and to stop the war from happening, but it's still gonna sting. They did spend a significant amount of time together, and Luke for sure developed a fondness of them. It was, in essence, his first time meeting people that aren't his servants in the manor, with Guy, Natalia, and Pierre, the gardener, being the only ones who developed an honest friendship with him in his time in the past 7 years. Finding out Spinoza's possible destination, Ash decides to go to Orcheon Cavern after learning that the facility needs more fominin, a mineral mined in the cavern used for the Fomicry process. It is here that Guy then decides to go back to Luke, with Anis objecting, calling Luke an idiot, and Natalia stating that Ash is the real Luke. Guy then validates the time he and Luke spent as friends and says he has faith in him. Luke hears this and thanks Guy from afar. This is an important point in Luke's character growth. Having a person that has faith in you and believing you can change is something that a person struggling with their own mistakes needs to adapt and change. Ash and Guy talk about something, and Ash tells him about the entrance to Julia City in a place called the Aramis Spring. With this, Guy departs and waits for Luke in Aramis Spring. There's also this one moment with Ash and Natalia in where Jade validates Luke's life with Guy and Natalia for 7 years. Yes, he's not the quote-unquote original Luke, but he's still real. He is alive. He still existed. Jade knows firsthand that creating life comes with responsibilities, and the replicas are still real people. Upon entering the cavern, Anis advises Ion to stay in the Tartarus, with Ash reinforcing to let him stay, and Luke chiming in from his head to come with, which maybe stems from Luke's confidence in protecting Ion, or Ash maybe not caring enough to protect anyone, which really isn't the case. Maybe he's just not used to escort missions, which is kind of weird because the God Generals are supposed to be the lead bodyguards of the Phone Master. We encounter creatures not native to the cave, with Ash rescuing Natalia from being ambushed by a few of them. Jade identifies the creatures as a result of the Fomicry experiments in the area. The cavern is crawling with these creatures, but it's kind of a short dungeon, more of a story beat. So, let me bring this up now. When we started this portion of the story playing as Ash, Natalia has been asking him if he can remember parts of the past that were clearly both important to them. With one where Natalia asking Ash about the promise he made with her. It's the very same promise that she asked Luke if he can remember the first time you meet her. Ash shrugs that off, saying he's not Luke. Natalia firmly grasps these childhood memories, and there's a very great reason for this. Although, it's kind of terrible of her to kind of brush off Luke's existence, pointing out that Ash is the real Luke. But you've got to remember that she's shocked and maybe excited in the prospect that this person being the one you shared many of the most cherished moments of your life. These events being important to her character development in the future. In the depths of the cavern, we find a Fomicry facility, running calculations on large objects. Jade informs of the possibility of replicating small islands. Then they find a calculation large enough to replicate a continent along with data from citizens from an island called Hod. We also find two Cheagles, a replica and its original, with the original not being able to breathe as strong a fire as the replica. Jade explains this to be a side effect of the replication, but do not worry about it since it's been 7 years and Ash is doing okay. Ash, planning to stop Van alone, proposes to take them all back home. On their way, a monster appears to stop them and Ash saves Natalia from injury, and this initiates the boss fight. The monster is called an Encyclopolyp. It's a pretty cool design, very monster from the depths like. It's weak to wind damage and does a lot of water attacks. It's pretty okay. The only thing that's annoying about it is the times that you're gonna wonder why you're the only one attacking the thing. And it's because it generates these small monsters called polyps. After the monster goes down, Jade explains that it was formed due to the waste caused by the Fomicry experiments. Natalia thanks Ash for saving her, and upon trying to exit, they experience an earthquake. Ash explaining that this was due to Luke destroying the Sephiroth in that region. He then finally reveals why they've been making Ion open those Sephiroth doors. Van is planning to drop the continents to destroy them. To what cause? We'll learn that later. Learning about Van's plan, Luke decides to wake up, seeing Tyr outside the room window. With a new sense of urgency, Luke tells Tyr about the danger of Saint Bina falling. Tyr asks him how he's going to stop him, chastising him for basing all his actions from what others say.
You're right. Master Van said so. Ash said so. That's all I ever say. It's no wonder everyone got sick of me and left me behind.
You knew that they went back to the Outer Lands?
I told you, Ash and I are connected. I saw it through him. I really am his replica.
Luke.
Up till now, all I ever paid attention to was myself. And I'm not even sure I saw myself clearly.
Yeah.
I want to change. I have to change.
If you really mean that, then perhaps you can. But even if you change, that won't bring back Exariuth. And it won't erase the fact that thousands died. With the weight of all that on your shoulders, how do you plan to change?
I don't know. That's all I know how to say. I'm pathetic. If I could make up for Exariuth by apologizing, I'd apologize as much as it took. If my dying could bring back Exariuth, then I'd be scared. But I'd die.
Luke accepts and acknowledges his faults, accepting responsibility for the tragedy of Exariuth. but kind of words it in a very clumsy way. As a sign of resolve, Luke cuts his hair. With this, I say goodbye to what I've been, and lets go of his hair. I may not do a good job right away. I may make mistakes, but I'm going to change. This is the beginning of Luke's road to redemption. As cliche as that may sound, Tyr suggests to talk to her grandfather, the mayor of Yulia City, and he reveals something very disturbing.
Oh, Tyr, it's you. And this must be...
Pleased to meet you. I'm Luke.
I'm you!
You stay quiet.
Ah, you're the Luke replica. I see. You really do look the same.
Grandfather!
Oh, I'm sorry. There's no need for you to apologize to us for Exariuth, however.
What do you mean?
The fall of Exariuth is written in Yulia's score. It occurred because it was meant to.
What are you saying? I've never heard that. That makes it the same as Hod.
It's part of the closed score. Only those of Maestro rank or higher know of it.
If you knew about it through the score, why didn't you try to stop it?
Luke, I'm surprised to hear someone from the Outer Lands say such a thing. A calm, orderly life in accordance with the score is the way of the Order of Lorelei.
Well, yeah, but...
Why are people read the score on their birthday each year? To learn of the next year and accept the possibilities it holds.
Then why didn't you inform the world about Exariuth's destruction?
Yeah, if you'd let everyone know, people wouldn't have had to die.
That's the problem. When faced with a score of death, people become unable to live peacefully.
Of course! Sir, nobody wants to die.
That's not acceptable. Yulia read prosperity for Aldrich in the score. If we don't move history down that path, we'll lose the prosperity we are promised. We are the Watchers who guide the Outer Lands to prosperity, based on Yulia's score. The Order of Lorelei is a tool for that purpose.
Complicit to genocide, obstruction, deception, all in the name of a promised prosperity. The fear of losing this promised prosperity, urging the Watchers of the score to do unspeakably horrific acts. Even with the warning of part of the continent falling, Theodora remains calm and sure that anything unwritten within the score is not meant to happen. Outraged by this, Tyr and Luke resolve to leave and find a way to save Saint Bina. While preparing to leave the city, Tyr recounts how Van hated the score, how it wasn't used to save their homeland. She recalls a time when she overheard a conversation between him and Lagreta about how the people of the Outer Lands would perish and die. She hands Luke a book on phonology to help him learn to control his hyperresonance. A glyph in the city takes them to Aramis Spring, and along the caves in the spring, they find Guy, who's been waiting for them, telling Luke to keep the name and being surprised for his gratitude. Now, here's something I want to emphasize. Luke would have never changed if not for the people who stayed with him. Without people to correct you when you're wrong or to cut you some slack when you make mistakes, you may find yourself falling into the same traps you did before. I'm not a therapist or anything, but based from personal experience, I think that sometimes outside perspectives and corrections are an important part of reforming or changing a habit, especially to people who grow up in a very isolated environment like Luke. That importance is also shown here, where the two talk about how much Luke has to deal with, and we kind of forgot how heavy that is for one person. This day and age, if a person makes a mistake like Luke does, they'd send him off to the gallows, never to be heard from again. Doesn't matter your mistake or how you atone for it, or how even long ago you made that mistake. People love to see a quote-unquote bad person be punished. It makes them feel righteous, it makes them feel better about themselves. Unfortunately, there are still some bad people out there who still gets cuts off some slack, and it's awful to see, but there's a lot of people who gets punished for the smallest mistake, never having the chance to improve. That's why Guy and Tyr are important to Luke. People who are there to stick with him and acknowledge that he can change. They gave him an inch, and throughout this story, we'll see him give more than a mile. Small conversations between Luke and Guy when you're exiting the Aramis Spring Caverns, where Guy reminds Luke that even far back, Luke already had his own personality. Guy even taking responsibility for not scolding him enough when he was a kid. Finally exiting the cavern, they're met with Jade. We are informed that Ion and Natalia have been taken by Mose, determined to start a war in the name of a promised prosperity. Jade's reaction to reuniting with Luke is catty, downright savage. And that's how it is. You do something bad, you act like an ass, you have to work hard to win them back. And I really can't blame Jade for acting like it. Luke acted like a windbag and made a fatal tragedy happen. All because of his misguided trust on Van and his insistence of not acknowledging the existence of his entourage as the Kimlaskan ambassador. Speaking of Cathy, after the amount of emoticons exhibited by Anis, she informs us of Natalia and Ion's location, with a plan to speak with a Maestro Tritime, who, believe it or not, will be important to the plot. And if you thought Jade's welcome was cold, damn, kid! After getting a permit from Tritime, we searched the Oracle Knights headquarters, a military training ground underneath a church. I sure hope no church gets the idea of making their own militia. Okay, so this is a fun dungeon. Since we need to search the rooms of the facility, but they're not easily accessible, we need to use gongs beside the rooms, which are signals to assemble to call out soldiers from in the rooms to get in. You can knock out the soldier that comes out, which will be very important to parts of this place. After ringing a lot of gongs, we find Natalia and Ion, and I really love how Ion thinks of Luke, saying that he's always been a good person, and just not knowing how to express it. Although it's more accurate to say he's a good person, he just needed a little time to develop. Evidence to this is when he apologizes for the first time, he accused Tyr of being a spy. Something that happened so far behind the story now. I don't think I even written that on the script. Wait. Yeah, no, I wasn't able to write notes about that. But Luke remembers and apologizes for it. I'll say again, if you're planning on playing this, use a mod that restores the voice acting for the skits. It enriches the experience. Yes, they're just conversations, but they are impressively acted and brings a lot of emotion to these small moments. Finally reaching the hill overlooking the city of Dath, the party planned their next action. Unfortunately, since the king, Natalia's father, is too trusting of Grand Maestro Mose, they are unable to go directly to him and ask him to stop the war. Ion suggests going to Malkuth's emperor for aid since Saint Bina is still in danger of sinking, which is within Malkuth territory, and the emperor of Malkuth was also the one who resolved to enact a peace treaty. Unfortunately, since the city becomes a fortress in the threat of war, and the Tartarus was captured by the god generals, and news of Jade dying in Xeriuth has spread, they can't enter the city directly from the Tartarus, and they have to walk.
Is it going to sink?
I'll take a look.
I'll go too. I may be able to help if any phone machines need repair.
Master, I can't swim!
I know. Don't worry. We're not going to sink.
En route to a broken bridge, which is close to the capital, since the Tartarus just throughout the story has been beaten. It got hijacked, it endured the ground collapsing, fell into poisonous mud, it also got ejected out of the Clyfoth. It's now in need of dire repairs, and the party goes on a much needed stopover in a town called Ketterberg. Oh, and Jade was born there, I guess. Oh yeah, the mayor is also his sister. Apparently, only the emperor believed that Jade was still alive, and Nefri, her sister, allows them to rest in the city and repair and resupply the beaten Tartars. Maybe it's because I'm an islander, but I always liked the concept of snow. Man, check out those kids with their snowball throwers. Luke excuses himself to return to Nefri's office as she requested. Nefri tells him about Jade's past and his attempt to create a replica of his beloved mentor. Jade confronts Luke about this, clarifying that he no longer wishes to replicate Professor Nebula, giving probably one of the most relevant quotes to this game.
I'll live the rest of my life pained by the sins of my past.
In the morning, Nefri informs us that the Tartarus is ready and we're set to get back to journeying to Rotellero Bridge. The fuck is Mew doing? Finally reaching Theor Forest, which is the land border to Grand Kokma, Jade introduces himself to the guards and is escorted to the capital. Unfortunately, I say that a lot, don't I? Oracle soldiers assault the border and we move in to investigate the reason for the attack. How in the hell are they following us? Depending on your patience, this place may get to your wits. You're kind of encouraged to not fight, but there's a lot of items in here. So to not fight anyone, you can use Mew's fire or using Mew to knock on trees to distract soldiers. With a bit of luck and planning, you can get through this fine. We found the source of the commotion was Largo, with Sync hiding and using Guy to attack them. An earthquake allows Natalia to snipe Sync out of where he's hiding and take Guy out of the curse slot's influence. A unit of soldiers make Largo and Sync run and the party is taken into custody by the soldiers. Luckily, we're expected and are welcomed by General Frings of the Malkuth army, who informs Luke that they need to meet with the Emperor. Luke is still distraught by Guy's injury due to the curse slot, and he flies off the handle a bit. Ion then requests a place to rest to where he can work on removing the seal, informing everyone that the curse slot is a phonic art only usable by phone masters. He then tells us what the curse slot actually does.
Now, a curse slot can't be used to take full control of the target.
What does that mean?
A curse slot stirs up memories and paralyzes rational thought. Guy wouldn't have attacked you if he didn't already have a strong desire to kill you. That's what it...
What?
You mustn't get near Guy until I've removed the curse.
This rattles Luke to the core. Guy was the first one to come back for him. Learning how the curse slot works gives Luke a lot of self-doubt. Tyr lays it in thick that even though there was a time Guy hated him so much he wanted to kill him, Guy still believed him in the end. With his head clear, Luke finally meets with the Emperor. Emperor Peony is chill. Like, bizarrely chill. Like, surfer dude chill. He informs us that St. Bina's land is indeed sinking, but can't deploy soldiers due to Kimlaska's declaration of war due to the apparent deaths of Luke and Natalia. Luke boldly requests the Emperor to instead send them into St. Bina to rescue the citizens. Natalia chimes in as well. I love this scene with Luke requesting the Emperor to save St. Bina. This isn't the pinnacle of his growth yet, and we're set to see more. But seeing Luke do his best like this is pretty inspiring and you really want to root for him. After the audience, we return to the inn and Guy explains to Luke the root of his hatred. He was born a noble from Malkuth, and in the Had War, Luke's father laid siege to the city, killing everything and everyone he loved. Oh, and Jade knew already because of course he does. Luke and Guy resolve to trust each other, mending their friendship. And we head straight to St. Bina. There's also an option to not go directly, which should allow you to do some exploring if you want, but I did go straight there for my run. With the message from the Emperor, the McGoverns move to evacuate their citizens. The evacuation is going very well, with everyone noticing how Luke is working very hard to change. However, this arrives with Oracle soldiers impeding the progress of the evacuation. Another attempt on recapturing Ion for Van's plan. The fight is basically the same from the last time you fought this. His robot just has some new moves. It's still weak to water though. Just protect your casters and you're golden. We've defeated this, but the land starts sinking. Currently unable to rescue the rest of the citizens trapped in town, Guy suggests their next destination to be Sheridan, a place where flightstone experiments are being conducted. Since the sinking is caused naturally and not instantly like in Xerius, the descent only speeds up after passing a certain point, giving them enough time to go there.
And it took several days for Hot to fall. There's a force field called the dividing line between the cliff off and the outer lands. He said they fell faster just after crossing that line.
Hey man, don't ask me. Without wasting any time, we arrive in Sheridan, where we meet three elderly engineers, Eamon, Tamara, and Aston, arguing about an incident with a recent experiment. The Albior, the plane they were developing, recently crashed in the Maggiore Highlands along with Eamon's grandson, the pilot. Luke negotiates to rescue the drive and the pilot in exchange for borrowing another plane. Then Jade chooses the worst time to be snarky. We get to the Maggiore Highlands and see the Albior in a precarious position. They decide to split into two groups to properly secure the craft to save both the pilot and the hover drive. On Luke's side, near the Albior, you'll encounter a fucking T-Rex with a pretty grotesque looking sword on its back. Pretty sure that's nothing. Anyway, the Blade Rex is a pretty cool design. I can't remember if there are any more variants of this monster model in the game, and unfortunately it's more of an obstacle made for you to sweat it out while a timer runs. It's a simple fight even with just 3 members. Just be careful not to get too careless since it does give a lot of damage. Oh, and after the fight you get an item called Nebulim? Oh, it's the sword. Luckily, Guy's party doesn't encounter a dinosaur, and they get to secure their side faster. We've successfully rescued Ginji and retrieved the hover drive. Now to get back to Sheridan. If it seems the story is moving a bit fast, please remember that Saint Bina is still sinking. We meet with Eamon and the others, but Kimlaskan soldiers arrive to pursue us, with Aston appearing to inform us that the Albior 2 is complete, and they're going to hold off the soldiers with frankly cool-looking combat poses.
By our honor as Sheridan's Class M, this is as far as you go!
These guys are probably some of the coolest engineers that you'll see in an RPG. No offense, Sid. With the speed of the Albior 2, we're able to save the remaining citizens of Saint Bina. Everyone then watches as the town fall into the poisonous mud of the Clivemoth. Wanting to save the town for the citizens' sake, Luke asks if they can use the Sephiroths to do so. Luke is still scarred by the experience of destroying Xerius and is desperate to save Saint Bina. Jade chides Luke for this behavior and informs that everyone wants to save Saint Bina. We then head to Yulia City and ask about the Sephiroths and how the score has finally faltered. Theodora awaits everyone after learning of the falling of Saint Bina, an event not written in the score. The mayor of Saint Bina, the older McGovern, encourages Luke, saying that old people take time to scold people they like. Jade is embarrassed by this and snarks as always. Anyway, can we stop referring to Jade as old? He's just in his 30s, man! Luke then takes time to thank Tyr, who from the very start of this game has never stopped correcting Luke. It's true that in the beginning of the game, she felt obligated to get him back home, but there's a lot of moments in where she really didn't have to do anything and not teach Luke anything at all, but she still did. The party gathers in City Hall to find a way to save Saint Bina from sinking. Theodoro laments not having an item called the Key of Lorelei, a sword-and jewel that can freely control energy, but he does suggest an alternative solution, the passage rings. If you can't remember, that's what Van had Luke destroy in Xerius. The hope is to restore the Sephiroth to prevent the land from sinking into the poisoned mud. To enact this plan, we head to a location called Sherry Hill, east of the falling town, and find the passage ring, unmoved until, well, we unseal it. And it is here that Anis reveals the source of Van's strength and martial prowess.
バンは本当にいろいろな技術を持っていますのね。だよね。知識もあるし、頭のキレもすっごいし、剣術もすごいし、セブンスフニムも扱えるし、超人だよ、超人。ヒゲだし。ヒゲは能力ですの？ヒゲは能力だよ。首席総長はきっとヒゲから力が出てるんだよ。まあ、あのヒゲにそんな秘密が。 何気に眉毛もすごいよね。
眉毛まで。眉毛には一体どんな力がありますの？
眉毛はね、索敵装置だね。あと人心を操る恐るべき催眠能力を放っているのであった。
さすがオラクルの総長ですわ。侮れませんわね。
ティア、あんなこと言ってるけどいいのか？
いいんじゃないかしら。
ヒゲはともかく、グランツ幼少はその知望を生かす能力を持っているようです。これからも先手を取られ続けると少々厄介ですよ。
でもどうするんだ？戦って勝てるかもわからないし、何より居所がわからないぜ。
アッシュなら何か知っていると思うのだけれど。
アッシュね。
I love this game very much. So the control panel is locked with some seals and we need to unseal it by solving a puzzle in the dungeon. The puzzle has to do something with collecting colored balls and placing them in pedestals to make a musical score play. Solving these allow you to open paths to stone that you bash Mew's head with to break the seals. There are 3 variations of this in the dungeon. We unseal the mechanism, but the control panel doesn't respond until...
Tyr, could you Okay. What?
Once opened, Jade guides Luke in undoing Van's seal from the passage ring and successfully reactivates the Sephiroth. Unfortunately, the passage ring also shows them the impending sinking of Engave, so we need to move immediately to evacuate its citizens. Up in the Outer Lands, war has broken out. Due to the conflict, Engave is now in danger of destruction even before the lands fall. Luke suggests to split up. In the game, this is actually separated as a choice. I always choose to go to Engave because that makes most sense with Luke's character, and I also take Tyr with me, and Jade joins by default. This party mirrors who was present at the start of the game, where Luke stumbles into Engave as a selfish, oblivious, and arrogant person to someone who's willing to risk his life for complete strangers. Since the villagers can't escape to the capital, Luke elects to escape to Casidonia, having the elderly and children be transported on the Albior, with them accompanying the able-bodied across the battlefield. And I do adore this simple reaction from Jade.
Let's leave the Albior to Noel, so we can escort those who are walking.
Luke. Yes, let's do that.
Clearly thinking the same thing, Jade is quite surprised that this selfless suggestion came from that very same selfish, oblivious, and arrogant person. Clearly, Luke's willingness to change and improve is now shining through. There's actually some interactions with some of the villagers while you're taking them to Casidonia. A very important one is from this one woman, Miriam, who is the mother of the boy who drowned in the mud in Xeriuth. Luke tries to apologize to her, but Jade stops him. Why? Because they're on a battlefield, and it's not the time and place for a potential reaction that would cause chaos from the villagers. After reaching Casidonia, we are actually rewarded depending on how much combat we avoid. And the rewards are quite good. After this, we immediately switch to Natalia's party in Kaitsur. Unfortunately, General Cecile doesn't have any authority to issue a ceasefire, and all of the important figures are in Casidonia, so off they go to reach Count Almandine's ear. I actually got lost in the battlefield. It's the same deal with Luke's party, that you got to avoid fights as much as you can, but I didn't, and I fought a lot, so I'm sorry. When we reach Casidonia as Natalia, we are immediately reunited with the rest of the party. Natalia then informs Luke of Almandine's presence in Casidonia with Grand Maestro Mose. Natalia and Luke do their best to negotiate for a ceasefire. However, Mose, like the disgusting wretch that he is, exposes Natalia to be adopted, and then branding her as a fake and traitor. This shocks her to the core. Up to now, she's always been the one who's using her status as princess to help others. She's oblivious to some things, sure, but her definition of nobility has always been for the service of her people, using her status as princess to help the citizens of her father's kingdom. This demoralizes her immediately and destroys her confidence. Let's get this out of the way. Mose is a monster. He is. For all you Final Fantasy X fans out there, he is all the higher figures of Yevionism compressed into one body. He claims that he's doing the score's bidding, but never stopped to ask if the vague promise of prosperity is even worth all of this loss of life. Believe it or not, he will get even worse down the line, I promise you. During the exchange, Ion, believing he can do more in Dath, elects to return to Dath and relieves Anis of her duties as guardian, ordering her to keep an eye on Luke. We talk to Astor, who agrees to take in the refugees from Endgame. But grave news arrives as Astor is informed that Casidonia is sinking too. Remembering that Zao Ruins also has a passage ring, we head there to possibly slow down the fall of Casidonia too. Ash communicates with Luke via brain and tells him to go to the Oasis. Ash asks if Luke is hearing someone else's voice recently. Luke, still kind of annoyed with him, says no, but Ash does inform us that the Sephiroths are connected to each other and we can remotely control the one we previously activated in Cherry Hill if we activate the passage ring in the Zao Ruins. So there is only one thing new in the Zao Ruins. A freaking fossil scorpion with a T-Rex skull. Fucking awesome. So my favorite party configuration is with Luke, Guy, Anis, and Tyr. The three allow you to keep some enemies locked into a stun state while being hammered with physical attacks. This works for a while with this monster until the fossils that surround it shakes off. This is awesome. Though the monster's attacks don't really change that much, and you can still stun lock it with a ton of melee attacks. After a very, very, very long trek down, seriously, this is no dungeon, it's literally just a set of stairs. We reach the ruins' passage ring. Now watch as Jade guide Luke in doing this world's equivalent to C++. Jade suggests we wait out the descent before going outside. Luke banters with Anis and Guy for a bit, but then Tyr falls to the ground. Worried for Tyr's health, we exit the ruin and return to Casidonia. We rendezvous with Noelle, and Jade asks her to fly above to confirm a suspicion. Above the skies of the Clayfoth, Jade confirms the worst. The Sephiroth trees are malfunctioning. A warning he saw from the passage ring hinting that the malfunctions could cause them to be destroyed. And if that happens, every continent in the Outer Lands and the Clayfoth will be swallowed by the miasma. Luke asks if in the score there's any mention or possibility of the Outer Lands being saved, but since Theodoro won't be inclined to share any information, Anis suggests Ion. With the Albior, we reach Dath, finally away from the heat of the desert. I lived through a heat wave while writing this. With Anis's guidance, we reach Ion's room, and then hide deeper into it because of a meeting between Mose and Dist. And from that, it looks like Dist is still determined to create a replica of their mentor Nebulim, and is negotiating for her replica data, with Mose determined to realize the prophecy of the score. Since we're still in the dark on Van's final plan, we decide on stopping the war by taking Mose away from King Ingobert's ear. Not seeing him in his room, we find Ion in a library and he reads to us the passages of the score relevant to the recent events.
ND 2000. In Kimlaska shall be born the scion of Lorelai's power. He will be of royal blood, with hair of red. He shall be called the light of the sacred flame, and he will lead Kimlaska Landvaldir to new prosperity. ND 2002. The one who would seize glory shall destroy the island of his birth, a land named Hod. War shall persist between Kimlaska and Malkuth for a full cycle of the seasons. ND 2018. The young scion of Lorelai's power shall bring his people to the minor city. There, the youth will turn power to calamity and be as a weapon of Kimlaska, destroying himself and the city. Thereafter, the land of Rubnica will be enveloped in war, and Malkuth shall lose territory. Kimlaska Landvaldir shall thrive, and this shall lead to unprecedented prosperity.
Ion!
That's all the Sixth Phone Stone says about the collapse.
So, all it talks about is Axarioth and the war.
The Sephiroth going out of control might be written on the 7th phone stone.
Who's the scion of Lorelei's power?
Luke, of course. Who else?
But Luke was only born 7 years ago.
This is ND 2018. It said 2000, so that has to be Ash.
Ash was supposed to perish along with Axariuth, but he's still alive.
But Luke went to Axariuth before that could happen. This score is messed up.
Ash did show up later, but he was no longer called Luke, the light of the sacred flame.
Luke's existence, the existence of a replica, is missing from Yulia's score.
Are you saying that me being born threw the score off track?
Luke?
Found you!
This is bad! Everyone, please run! You too, Annis!
Let's get back to the Albior.
Sadly, the escape is cut short. Mose is waiting along with this and a platoon of Oracle soldiers with Noelle as hostage. Mose takes them to Baticul to have Luke and Natalia executed. The thought of being absent from the score and taking it off track causes him to surrender to this, and Tyr protests. She protests this strongly, saying that his absence from the score only meant that it can lead them into a new future. In Baticul, Luke and Natalia are separated from everyone and detained in Natalia's room. Natalia, poor Natalia, addressed as a name that was not given to her at birth and is labeled traitor by her father's followers, are instructed to drink poison to die by the grace of her own hand. Mose, you can fucking rot in hell. Luckily, they're saved in the last minute because, well, spoiler alert, Ash freed them. The hell is your deal? In the audience chamber, Mose exercises his influence on the king in full tilt. Like a 9-year-old winning a Twitter argument with facts and logic. He even does the thing of adding details to events that were never the case, declaring that Natalia aided in the destruction of Axariuth because she was taken from her real parents, who she'd never really met before. Like, bro. Luke pleads with his uncle, mentioning the time he spent raising Natalia as his own. Shut the fuck up, Mose! Ash then appears to expose this duplicity. And this kind of ticks off Largo, and they get to a fucking argument. We flee the king's castle, escaping Baticul with the aid of Duke Fabre's White Knights and the people of the city. Like I said before, this is not unfounded. Natalia has always been characterized for her nobility. She embodies the word, using her status and everything she has to help others. The citizens shield her, thankful for her works and what she's done to the city. None of these people want a war, regardless of what the prophetic score says. In the city's entrance, the people give Natalia their support, advising us to escape the city via Inista Marsh, which leads to Belken.
There's something scary about this marsh.
Let's pray we don't run into any nasty monster.
Jade, dude, time and place. Oh, the behemoth. No problem. I can deal with this guy. What? He gives nothing? Fuck this thing, I'm out. I guess we kinda have to talk about the swamp. So the marshland's biggest feature is the behemoth. And it wouldn't really make sense if you moved fast in here. So they slowed you down. Every time you're in the swamplands, you move slower. Significantly slower, which means a lot of frantic moments in where the behemoth is chasing after you. Luckily, this dungeon isn't that huge, but there are some good items here. And if you go back to this location at a certain amount of time, you can beat the behemoth again and it will give you something. During our excursion in the marsh, Natalia gets a bit distracted and gets nearly caught by the behemoth. She gets a moment to break down.
You know what?
Right. The people in Baticul would be in tears if Natalia got hurt.
Yeah, I was so surprised. They really love her.
Natalia's in charge of public works. She uses the profits to help the needy. Everyone admires her.
If Luke were the prince, he would have just enjoyed his nice, cushy life.
Even statesmen need to have character.
Yeah, the people of Baticul don't love the princess. They love Natalia.
But father!
If His Majesty insists on rejecting you, then come with me to Malkuth. I'd welcome you with open arms.
How can you say things like that with a straight face?
Hey, don't let Guy sweet talk you into defecting to Mal.
How about instead we take King Ingobert off the throne and make Natalia queen?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to start crying.
It's okay. So much has happened. It's gotta have been unsettling.
I'm sorry, everyone. I'm all right. Thank you, Guy.
I'm happy I could help bring back your smile.
You're going to make me blush. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
It's been a very hard day for her. And it's nice to see that everyone has her back. Near the exit of the marsh, we encountered Behemoth again. This time separating Anis from the group. To rescue her, we have to entertain it for a while. Just run away as the story tells you. Or you could just do what I did and waste all of your resources. Because it ends the same way. You get zero everything afterwards. After an excruciating trek from the marshland, we finally reached Belkend again. And Jade intends to visit Spinoza. You know, the squirrely old dude who tried to call out Jade but got owned and run like a chicken? Yeah, that guy. We reach the lab and Luke is mistaken for Ash. Okay, listen, how are you guys not fired yet? They do not wear the same clothes and there is a man in blue uniform you know is from the other army you're against. How can you be this dim? Anyway, then we get intercepted by Van, who lets them all stay. Probably because he's still underestimating Luke. He partially shares his past to us and reveals some of his past with Guy, confirming that he used to be Guy's attendant in HUD and his plan to let the continents drop down to the Clivehoth, destroy Lorelei himself, and replace everyone with replicas to free humanity from the score. Boy, I didn't think comparing him to Palpatine would make this much sense. Ash drops in and Van, Jesus Christ, offers him to join him in his plan to clone an entire planet and just verbally abuses Luke. It's downright upsetting and hypocritical how he badmouths Luke but then justifies a world made of just replicas. He lets everyone leave because he needs Ash and he's underestimating Luke. Outside of the laboratory, it turns out Ion asked Ash to help them out. That's why he was able to free everyone in Baticul. He also asks everyone to meet him in the inn. On the way to meet Ash in the inn, Luke asks Guy about his past with Van. Guy reinforces what he said in Grand Kokma, that he's no longer interested in vengeance, and everyone confirms they still trust Guy except for Anis, who tells them they're too trusting. Hey, looks like Ash saved Noel too, though they took the flight stone, so here, have some tiny Bronco flashbacks. Ian also asked Ash to hand us a forbidden text containing some very, very old history. Curiously, that book's name is The Genesis of the World. Why the church would suppress a book like this is unknown to me. The book contains the origin of the Clivehoth, created by the world's magic system, the Planet Storm. Well, its engine. I'm kind of simplifying a lot of terms here. The science of this world is very well explained, and if I include all of the explanations here, I'd probably go more insane. Basically, the Planet Storm, I'll let Tyr explain here.
The Planet Storm. That's that artificial planetary fuel distribution system, right?
That's right, you remembered. The memory particles from the core pour out of the first Sephiroth, the radiation gate, and they return to the core through the second Sephiroth, the absorption gate. That's the planet storm that forms the planet's fuel.
And that's what's causing the planet's core to vibrate and turn the soil into mud underground. The machine that would help them is a bit complex, so they need some help from engineers from Belkend. On Guy's suggestion, he asks us to look for an engineer named Henkin. Henkin and Kathy, another engineer, refuses. That's until Guy mentions Iemon, who were their rivals in college. This fact apparently known to nerds like Guy. The two engineers ask the town's governor.
Relax. The governor is going to help us.
I've been ordered to search for Master Luke and Princess Natalia. I just can't seem to find them. That's all. Understand?
Oh, please, you're as excited as anyone about that forbidden text.
Either way suits us. We'll explain what's happened so far. Go ahead, Guy.
Me? Oh, alright.
And after all that discussion, our next destination is Dath to get Ion. Oh, Spinoza was also spying on us. Cool. You can just go to Dath immediately and save a lot of time. Dude, have you seen the runtime of this thing? Of course I took that side quest. You go through a wild goose chase through Grand Kokma, Ketterberg, then Grand Kokma again.
We're here!
It took a while to get here.
Well, a certain someone decided to take the scenic route.
Okay, enough already.
But it's true.
Yeah, I can't back you up on this.
I can't defend you.
Don't you start in on me too.
This dialogue proves that doing that side quest was worth it. In Dath, we ask Anis's parents about the God Generals. We are informed that besides Arietta, who's returning to Dath, pretty much everyone's not in town. Sweet! Free reign of the Vatican. We update Ion on the current situation. Then, Ash informs us via Brain again and informs us about Spinoza and how Kathy and Henken have been evacuated to Sheridan. Unfortunately, before we can follow, Anis's mother Pamela informed Arietta that we are here. A fight breaks out and Pamela shields Ion from a Liger's attack. Her words trigger a memory from Guy.
Guy, look out! If I was able to protect the heir to House Gardios, then I have no regrets.
I remember.
Luckily, Natalia was able to heal Pamela and was able to recover. Pamela herself, seeing Guy reeling from his traumatic memories, spares more sympathy towards him. Now we know why she works so damn hard for these people. Guy reveals to us the worst day of his life. The day his life was ruined by Duke Fabre. All the women included his sister, shielding him from soldiers, revealing the origin of his aversion to physical contact with women. All the girls apologize for teasing him for this phobia, and that's something very rare you see. Like characters apologizing for something that has become a running joke in the game. Arietta is taken into custody by Tritime, but don't worry, he'll be more important. Back in Sheridan, we check up on the engineers and see Tamara and Kathy outside of the workshop, tired of the three old men arguing. I love these old people and their passion for technology. Though they are nearly incapable of working together for the good of the world, they're forced into a collaboration right now. Now, since I left it out earlier, I have to explain the rest of their current plan. Since the planet's core is vibrating, the plan is to build a machine that matches the core's vibration to stop it, kind of. To do so, Hengen and Aston build a device to measure the core's vibration. Since the last passage ring unopened is in Tataru Valley, we need to get Ion to open it and measure the core's vibration from there. Then when the vibration has stopped, they will then lower all the lands into the Clayfoth, and when the planet's core is no longer vibrating, there should no longer be any miasma to worry about, and there shouldn't be a poisoned ocean of mud to worry about too. It's explained a lot better, and there's a lot of science to it. And I left them out intentionally because I'm not a YouTube scientist, I am a literacy ogre. It's been quite a long time since the last time we were in Tataru Valley, where the story literally began. Luke and Tyr recall the beginning of their journey together. We really did come a long way from that time. Luke is very much a different person now, changing and improving for the best. There's a lot of fun skits and events that may happen here, but overall the entrance of the place didn't really change. You're just able to access a new part of the place that you weren't allowed to go to before. Oh, also the enemies are a lot stronger over there. A little later, Anis finds a rare butterfly that costs millions. But an earthquake causes her to trip up and nearly fall into a cliff. Tyr manages to grab her, and in the heat of the moment, Guy quickly pulls Anis back up. A moment of strength in this critical moment. Guy overcomes his trauma. He's not fully cured. In fact, they immediately test if he is in a skit afterwards. At the entrance of the passage ring, we encounter a mystical creature called a Uniceros. Agitated by something, it attacks. We knock it out to calm it down, communicate, and heal its injuries. The creature informs that he sensed the miasma and got irritated. He sensed the miasma in Tyr. The control panel is unresponsive in this passage ring, so it looks like we need to break some seals. This time, the dungeon requires you to hit tuning forks to activate orbs to either turn on fans or open doors towards the seals. If you were able to get Mew Wing at this point, there's also some doors in here that you can only reach with it. With the seals broken, Tyr is able to unlock the control panel. Jade and Luke then proceed to do C++ on the controls again, then measure the core's vibration frequency. That went off without a hitch. And now it's back to Sheridan to check on Iemon and everyone else. We hand off the measurements to the engineers, and Tamara informs us that because of its tenacity, they're modifying the Tartarus to carry the vibration phone machine. Not being a typical RPG where a party of random people unilaterally decides the fate of an entire planet, Luke proposes to talk to the leaders, Emperor Peony, King Ingobert, and Astor, although they don't tell you that yet, but they do include him as a representative of the free nations and the neutral citizens. Lowering the lands is a giant change, and to ordinary people, it's a terrifying proposition. Talking to the rulers who can convey these changes can help in quelling some fears in the people who are, number one, shaken from the war that is still happening, by the way, and number two, just learn that the lands are definitely falling. It's perfectly sound. Unfortunately, Natalia is still reeling from the events in Batikul and needs some time to steel herself for her return home. So we spend the night in Sheridan to let her clear her mind. During the night, Luke sees Natalia heading out the inn and follows to see that she's talking to Ash. He's aware of the plan to inform the leaders about lowering the lands, probably peeking via Luke's brain again. She's afraid. And to help ease these fears, Ash, word by word, recalls his promise to Natalia when they were children.
Someday, when we're grown up, let's change this country. Change it so that no one has to be poor. Change it so that war never happens.
Let's work to change our country. For the rest of our lives. Together.
I didn't say that because you were a princess. Your birth doesn't matter. Just do what you can.
A promise of true nobility. Like Natalia, Ash never forgot this promise. Tyr catches Luke eavesdropping on the two. Luke still lamenting on his birth and how it interrupted Ash's existence. Tyr then reminds him that Ash would have died as Luke if he wasn't born, reminding him to not deny his own existence and to live in the now, because he is here right now. Full of resolve, Natalia is now ready to face her father and plead for his cooperation as a citizen of Kimlaska. In Batikul, Ion uses his authority for an audience with the king, placing the party under his authority and protection. Ion really knows when to use his political advantages when necessary. Facing the king, Luke passionately argues that Natalia is his daughter, reminding him of his time praising Natalia. Natalia pleads to stop the war on behalf of the citizens who desires none of it. Ion again leverages his position as an emissary of peace, and Jade lightens the mood in the darkest way possible, hinting on terrible things happening if Ion was harmed or ever killed and not entering into a dangerous negotiation without precautions. Dude, time and place! Jade then hands a document he's written to the king about the current situation of this planet, and the king informs them to return to the audience chamber the next day. After that tense moment, outside, Luke asks about the precautions Jade mentions in front of the king. He was just bluffing and being a dick for no reason. Do you see why people like this man? The morning comes and they appear in front of the audience chamber. Mose gets shut down twice, and the king apologizes to Natalia and defends her from Mose and his advisor. He acknowledges her and they share a moment together. Mose likely retreated to Dath to scheme a bit more. We head to Grand Kokma to talk with the other half of the peace treaty. Emperor Peony then proposes for talks to end the recent conflicts. Luke proposes to hold it in Yulia City so they can learn how the Clifoth is like. Then this happens.
Damn it, why the hell does Dist have the Flight Stone? What a pain.
He has a freakish obsession with phone tech and phone machines, just like Guy.
Excuse me?
Luke, it's not nice to compare Guy to Dist.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, come now, enough foolishness. Tyr is glaring at you.
There is no other character in RPGs like this man before this game. In order to transport the Aldrant leaders to the Clyfoth, we need to restore the Albiar's flight, so off to Doth for us. Yeah, we're still in the tiny Bronco.
Ow! Who the hell did that?
In front of the church, basically it's this telling us to go to Ketterberg if we wanted to get the flight stone, and this fucking line.
It's not in Darth. Most definitely not. Hurry!
You should have just said it's in Doth. What an idiot.
Brother, you have genius level intellect. What are you doing? Maestro 3-time confirms that this did make a stop in Doth before leaving and to ask his assistant Cantor Reiner in the Oracle Knights training facility for details. When we return to the training facility, a group of knights attack us, the facility having more guards confirming that the flight stone is indeed here. We find Reiner, who's doing training for a promotion. He's pretty adamant on not giving the stone, so Tyr puts him to sleep and we take the stone. Everyone's hilariously uncomfortable because, we just mugged the guy. As I mentioned before, Aster will be invited as the third representative. Ion suggests that we invite him, since Casidonia is basically an independent country that agreed to house refugees from both sides of the war. We explain this to Aster, and please, for the love of God, stop laughing like a supervillain. And as courteous and as generous as ever, he offers to explain the effects of the miasma in the peace talks since they'll need to agree to lowering the lands. The party decides to rest up while waiting for Noel to transport the leaders. After hearing Aster's explanation about the effects of the miasma, Luke still laments the fact that his hyperresonance is unable to completely remove the miasma, still regretting the fact that he did set these events into place. Tyr consoles him, reminding him of his promise and that he's not alone. This deep regret isn't going anytime soon. The morning comes and Noel arrives to take us to Yulia City. The treaty signing goes off without any incident until Guy puts a sword on Ingobert's throat. Then, Luke's father steps in to confess his direct involvement on Guy's family's death. And then, Emperor Peony confesses Malkuth's involvement in the destruction of the island of Hoth. And then, Jade corroborates the information because they needed to destroy the Fomicry research facility in Hoth. He continues to confirm that the destruction was caused by a test subject being used for hyperresonance experiments. A man with the name Fendi. Tyr recognizes the name to be his brother's birth-given name, revealing how he knew about the Fomicry research experiments and his anger against the world. Because every leader is in the room, including Ion, was involved in the destruction of Hoth. Since Guy has a valid reason to gut everyone in the room, Ion suggests for Guy to just sheathe his sword, and Theodoro adjourns the meeting. Now that the peace treaty is signed, all that's left is to stop the course vibration and lower the lands. The engineers finally complete the modifications for the Tartarus and briefs everyone on how the machinery works. We start the operation, but Legreta and her Oracle Knights mount an assault on Sheridan. Iemon, Tamara, and the town's inventors and engineers defend you as you escape. For these people, the Tartarus and the phone machine mounted to it, carrying their dreams as creators. The horror of the town slaughter causes Anis to apologize. As we run away, Tamara and Iemon are struck down by Oracle Knights. Tamara and Iemon have passed. In the port, Kathy, Henkin, and Aston spread sleeping gas to prevent the Knights from stealing the Tartarus. Unfortunately, Van arrives to personally deal with everyone, with Henkin upset at Spinoza for selling them out. Van attacks Luke, but Aston puts himself in the way. Henkin and Kathy then hold down Van, giving us time to escape. Van cuts them down where they stand, threatening Spinoza with the same fate. Hearing Luke apologize, Henkin tells Kathy to teach them manners when they return, saying they should say thanks. And as they speak, they fall as well. It is utterly upsetting to see the engineers die this way. Elderly men and women with passion and drive to build technology for the betterment of their fellow men. All cut down because of Van's mad dream. Not having time to grieve, everyone is upset over these turn of events. Tyr reminds everyone of their current mission, and Luke becomes upset at her tone. Guy reminds Luke who we're fighting against, reminding Luke that she's carrying the heaviest burden of them all. Near the core, Sync awaits us atop the Tartarus' deck, erasing a phonic glyph Eamon prepared for us. There is a boss fight with Sync here, but there really isn't anything new since your fight with him before. He's just here without Largo this time. Sync's defeat exposes him a replica of the Phone Master, as Ion reveals himself a replica as well, created the time Anis became a guardian. We redraw the glyph and a voice echoes in Luke's mind. A voice we haven't heard for a long time. The voice mentioning Tyr's heritage possesses her and identifies itself as Lorelei. It warns us of something sapping its strength and the cause of the planet's vibration. Tyr faints and we board the Albior to leave the core. With the operation to stop the core's vibration complete, we take Tyr to Belkend for an examination, worried for her health. Okay, there's more science with Dr. Shu explaining Tyr's situation. Anyway, basically, her blood is contaminated with the miasma. Jade and Ion ask Luke to be by Tyr's side. They share a very touching moment, Luke wanting her to stop helping lowering the lands, but can't because of all the lives in danger of the continents dropping. Luke asks Tyr to stop acting strong all the time and to tell him how she feels. She requests him to leave, but instead, he turns around, not wanting to leave her side. The voice acting in this is really good and you just have to play the game. Deciding where to go next, a researcher from Yulia City leads us to the direction of the Maggiore Highlands. Remember that place? It's where we save Genji and the Albior one. On the way to the passage ring, we encounter Legreta, who offers Tyr and Guy a place in Van's replica hellscape. They refuse and Legreta threatens them with the prophecies of the 7th Phone Stone, in where Guy remembers he saw it before, in where Van lived. As a descendant of Yulia, Van's family were stewards of the 7th Phone Stone, and as his friend, Van would take Guy to see it from time to time. We reach the passage ring and Guy is elated by the amount of machines in it. The sight of a mechanical doll that maintains the facility exciting him the most. Unfortunately, the elevator going down to the control panel doesn't really have energy, so as an energy source, we have to axe the robot and take its battery. So initially, the robot starts out as very strong. Apparently, you can do the puzzles in other facilities inside the Maggiore Highlands to weaken it. They're a bit annoying to find, and I don't really remember if it's true that it can weaken the robot. That was grandfathered to me by my younger self and some decade-old GameFAQs threads. There's some neat items you can get for solving the puzzles though, so that's not so bad to go through. Anyway, the control panel is just after the elevator behind the robot. After they made adjustments to the passage ring, Jade theorizes that if the source of the miasma is the core, then there could be a solution to it. Exiting the facility, we run into Aston, who's alive, thank God. He tells us he's keeping busy to distract him from thinking about his friends. Oh, Jesus. He's there testing the Albior 3. Oh, and Spinoza is here, and oh, he stole the ship! Luckily, it's only fueled for a test flight and it lands in Belkend. It turns out that Spinoza was in Sheridan to visit his friends' graves, but was too afraid of confronting and apologizing to Aston. Luke vouches for Spinoza, recognizing their similar circumstances. Jade then asks him to help isolate the miasma. The mayor of Belkend tells us the next location of the next Sephiroth and passage ring. Then, as we are preparing to leave, Anis complains why we believed Spinoza so easily. She's kind of untrusting recently, isn't she? The location we're pointed to is Mount Zalejo. It's in Dath. Ion informs us that there were rumors of an entrance being in the cathedral. Jesus, that cathedral has a military bunker and a volcano entrance. This place was made by supervillains. Speaking of supervillains, Mose is here. He's grumpy that most of the Oracle Knights have defected to Van. We've also ruined his plans for the war, but he does point us to the direction of the volcano entrance. So, after a few good minutes of being lost, we reach an old library. Apparently, the entrance is here. Anis trips on a shelf and exposes the entrance. Sure. Well, at least the entrance is here now. Jade asks if she knew about the entrance beforehand and...
No, I didn't! I had no idea about it! Now let's go! Come on, hurry!
Gee, I wonder if she's lying.
Don't worry about it.
That was the worst deflection ever. Moving on. So, there is a dungeon here, but I'm going to save it for later. And that's another passage ring done. Before heading to the last one in Mount Ronil, Jade asks to check in with Spinoza and the research to isolate the miasma. Spinoza confirms Jade's theory of isolating the miasma, which gives the party hope. All we need to do is to shut down the passage rings when they lower all the lands. There's a lot of science to this which I won't mention here again. The explanations again are really good and you just have to play the game to see them. Luke sends Tyr off to get medicine that suppresses the miasma in her body. In the morning, we learn that Tyr has disappeared and that she went with Ash into the Orcheon cavern. In the cavern, there's a lot of Oracle soldiers moving equipment out of the cave. At the end of the cave where the replica equipment was before, Ash is knocked down to the side and Tyr is trying to convince Van to stop his mad plans. It doesn't go well and Van leaves. We didn't get to fight him this time because, well, the place is crawling with Oracle Knights and you'll have to contest with them too. We leave the cavern and take the replica Cheagle that was left in the cave. The Cheagle was then after left in Aston's care. Tyr did earnestly believe that she could convince Van to stop. But unfortunately, Van really is adamant on continuing a world with just replicas. Our next destination is Ketterberg, and Jade wants to ask Nefri about Mount Renil. Nefri informs us that this was found frozen in the town square. Now, Nefri specifically asked Jade to not hurt him.
Stop! Stop! You're killing me! Jade! I'm sorry!
It seems the earthquakes have led to more frequent avalanches. Also, an extremely powerful monster has taken up residence in the deeper parts. The monsters in the area have likely grown aggressive due to that influence.
Oh, okay. About that scream just now?
Oh, that was nothing. Now, let's be going.
Right.
Yeah, he tortures the fuck out of him and also asks soldiers to arrest him. Cool. After that pleasant exchange of information, we head to Mount Renil for the final passage ring. After hearing a voice in the wind, Jade recounts a story in his words, a ghost of a woman who died in these mountains. Besides the adorable fact that Tyr is afraid of ghosts, this is foreshadowing for something here. Further in the mountains, they hear more voices. The god generals are here. They're waiting to ambush us and there's 3 of them. Arietta, Legreta, and Largo. I don't know what happened here. Normally, I'd get into trouble with this fight, and I was really close to losing here, but Tyr landed a timely resurrection and I was able to finish it with 1 try. I think it's preferable to deal with Arietta first because, number 1, she's the caster, and she has an overlimit that just nukes everyone. That fight causes an avalanche, which, fortunately, lands us in front of the passage ring's entrance. Talk about a coincidence. We reach the control panel. No, there really isn't that much of a dungeon here. Then Luke does the usual thing. But it looks like Van has anticipated this and is controlling the Sephiroths from another passage ring. His modifications causing the lands to all fall at once. The final destination is set. The absorption gate to the north. But before the final battle, we need time to prepare. In Ketterberg, the party disperses to rest and ready themselves. Also, the Albier's engine is frozen, so we really can't do anything else. At this moment, we're given a chance to talk to our friends for some really good character moments. Miu is just adorable. Natalia contemplates on the changes that they experience, Natalia making Luke say the promise she made with Ash, and accepts that they're just 2 different people and Luke is her friend nonetheless. Ion recounts how he was created by Van and how he came to acknowledge himself as an individual and not just a replica of the Phone Master. Talking to Guy gives Luke a very important lesson. Recounting his childhood, he tells Luke to enjoy his. That technically Luke is still young, only 7 years chronologically, and that he has a long life ahead of him. So I checked all of my footage and apparently I just wasn't able to find Anis in this one. I'm very sorry. Moving on, Tyr is still having a hard time resolving to fight her brother. She's still disappointed that he's obsessed with his revenge on the score. She acknowledges Luke's change and laments Van's inability to accept change at all. Luke asks that they should try convincing Van to stop one last time. And like the time Luke decided to change, he suggests to just do what they can. And this is probably my favorite moment in this. Jade, sympathizing with Luke's mistake at Axariuth, and admires Luke's ability to sympathize with the people he hurts and kills. Luke acknowledges him as a mentor, and I love how this is worded and how it's voice acted.
Being serious for a change?
Yes, I know about the nightmares that still wake you in the middle of the night. For you, the fall of Axariuth still isn't a part of the past.
Well, yeah, what do you expect?
On nights when you've killed bandits or Oracle soldiers, you lie there awake, shaking.
I'm a coward.
No, that part of you is something I lack. I still can't really grasp what it means for people to die.
Jade.
I've learned a lot of things by watching you.
I'm glad I've traveled with you, Jade. Thanks to you, I've learned what I need to do.
And this moment is gonna be really important for a later part of the story. Before Luke rests to end the day, Tyr arrives to inform him that Jade has sent letters to his uncle and Peony. Since Van is moving in to completely drop all of the lands, they need them to prepare for the worst. In the middle of the night, Luke awakens seeing Ash. Luke, still worried for him and maybe even wanting to make Natalia happy, invites him to come with them. Ash refuses, asking Luke to kill Van and that he'll do so if he doesn't. Luke agrees, with Ash still reeling from his fight with Van, his wounds still not fully healed. After the alveolar is repaired and a few words of encouragement, it's on to the absorption gate. The dungeon is very long, with a lot of puzzles too. This place has areas closed off with colored orbs, fences of fire you need to fight specific monsters to remove, and after a tremor, the party is separated into 3 groups. One with Luke and Tyr, one with Guy and Natalia, and then Jade and Anis. The separation does make the exploration of the dungeon very interesting though, since your supplies are still shared between these 3 parties, and you need to manage them with your reduced combat abilities. So, after a very long time of solving puzzles, the party reunites and Jade tells Luke that they need to lower the lands immediately after fighting Van. Because of Van's modifications, there really is no time to go to the other major Sephiroth in the planet. They're going to instead write a different command, hoping it helps in lowering the continents. We finally face Van, who's playing an organ for some reason. Well, their civilization is wholly sound-based, so I shouldn't really be surprised. Van, for some reason, is still convinced that he's gonna be able to make Ash join him. Yeah, after, kidnapping him, creating a clone who Ash witnessed basically stole his life. I don't know. It's like Van is just insanely delusional. Luke asks Van the reason why he was made. And after further derision and insults, he tells him his purpose. It's just to take the score temporarily off track. That's it. Van never had any respect for Luke. He had no vision, no plans beyond making him into a bomb in Axariuth. Van then kind of contradicts his statements by insulting Luke more, saying that his birth's interruption would never really change anything written in the score, ranting that the world has become dependent on the score for over 2,000 years, and the only solution is destroy the world and replace everything and everyone with clones. He's a pretty decent fight, not too easy, not too hard. He can go down in as fast as 2 minutes, and that's kind of disappointing really.
Julia's score controls the world. If humanity does not create a new world, free of the score, it will perish.
Then how do you explain me? Julia didn't say a thing about me.
The score is not an absolute future.
The fact that Luke exists shows that there are deviations or die! Take this! Redline enemies are fighting this! Fighter blade! Take this! So dead! Redline enemies are fighting this! Bring it on!
You're mine! Lightning blade!
Throw dark and storm now. Use thy blade. Then run mine enemies through.
Watch yourself.
Take this. Raging thunder blade.
Lightning blade!
Such levitation. I'll destroy Imperial Slaughter.
So uncool!
I'm bursting with photons!
Ground dasher!
Piercing flash! White Knights of Hell rise!
Take this! Take this! Tiger blade! Take this! Lightning tiger blade! Take this! Radiant attack!
Whoa, that was intense!
Watch out too!
Bingo!
Illumination of light. Healing circle.
Take this! Lightning tiger blade! No way! Negative gate!
No. Illumination of light.
Watch yourself!
Healing circle.
Bingo!
Lightning blade! Lightning blade! Feel thunder! Tiger blade! Lightning blade!
Such levitation! I'll destroy Imperial Slaughter! I never thought I'd be defeated by such a failure. Oh, how utterly ironic.
Arrogant till the end. And yeah, that's it. Luke tries to operate the passage ring, but doesn't have enough power to operate it on such a grand scale. But then, Ash, from somewhere, lends him an assist. And then Lorelei speaks, hinting of a new threat. Luke proclaims victory, and we're still not finished. But Luke's changed, Van has been defeated, and the Oracle Knights are all gone. What's left of the game? What are we gonna do next? Luke's first arc showed how selfishness can be warped and manipulated, culminating in the destruction of a city and the death of thousands. The second shows how he changed, how important to have a group of friends to support you in this change, gaining back trust, along with the goal of stopping the one who groomed and manipulated him from destroying all that he holds dear. The final one is a bit more somber. Because, you see, even after everything he's done, Luke feels like he's lost his place in the world. He has no direction, not even feeling that it's right to stay in the place he calls home. A month after they've lowered all the lands, Luke is summoned to the drawing room by his parents. Duke Fabre scolds Luke for being inactive for the past month and informs Van's sword is missing. Someone took it from the absorption gate, meaning this could be free or any of the dead god generals could still be alive. His mother noticed his recent forlorn behavior and that he feels like he has no place in his own home. Worried, she recommends for Luke to visit his friends and points him to their butler Ramdas for their locations. Oddly enough, Ramdas mentions that Duke Fabre ordered him to not give him the letters from his friends. Dude scolds him for not being active but orders letters addressed to him not delivered because he's still obsessed with social status. This kind of parenting is the reason Luke became an ass. Maybe a little news from his friends and some encouragement could have helped. Anyway, Luke snatches the letters from Ramdas and leaves, deciding to ask everyone about what recently happened in the absorption gate. He boards a ferry to Sheridan, hoping to borrow the Albior from Aston. On the ship, he reads the letters he received. Tyr is as stiff as ever, the letter reading more like a situation report. Guy tells him that he's become a Malkuth noble who walks Peony's pet rapigs. Anis is Anis. In Sheridan, Aston tells Luke that Ash borrowed the Albior 3 a month ago, confirming that he headed to the radiation gate to help them out. Aston then brings up the planet Storm being more active, stating the danger that it could destroy the Tartarus that's currently suppressing the core's vibration, stabilizing the Earth from turning into poison mud and keeping the miasma from exploding. Learning that Ash is headed to Yulia City, we set our next destination. Also, the game gives you fast travel. Cool, I guess. Reaching Yulia City, it looks like Theodora was waiting for Luke as well. He greets Luke and informs of the confusion experienced by the people when they learned the world has strayed from the score. Luke asks about Ash and he tells us that Ash asked something about getting into the core. Luke meets with Tyr, who's in front of Van's memorial in her garden. Luke pays respects to the memorial and thanks Tyr for the letter. It was her first time writing one, which explains why it sounds like a military report. Like Luke, Tyr has a lot of thoughts in her mind, still thinking of why her brother sought such extreme methods to bring about change in the world. Luke then shares his worries with Tyr, of him having no place, no family, not even a name. She then reminds him of his own words, that the time he spent with his parents were still real, but the doubts and fear cloud what he knows in his mind. Tyr recommends asking everyone about himself, mentioning that she needed to bring a message to Ion in Dath anyway. Once we're back there, we see Anis racketeering. While waiting for Ion, Luke asks Tyr about Mose and hey, looks like the guy is getting what he deserves. In jail and in trial. Anis returns and tells us about how people have been asking about the score after the lands fell into the Qliphoth. Also, word of the closed score got out. Not looking good for the plan to going away from the score. Since Luke asked Anis for an audience with Ion, she guides them to his room. Luke asks about his worries and what he'll do. Ion is set on his goal on letting people know about the existence of replicas like him and Luke, something he decided on their first adventure together. Tyr then hands her message to Ion. It's a report on the world's current situation, a mass usage of energy causing the planet Storm to become overactive, and how someone took Van's sword in the absorption gate. And hey, Guy's here to warn us that this has escaped. And he freed Mose on his way to incarceration. Great. He also mentions that he met Ash in Grand Kokma and was warned about the God Generals. Ash also mentioning about going to St. Bina about freeing Lorelei. Luke brings Guy up to speed and he also mentions that he heard the same message about Lorelei. So they decide to head for St. Bina to pick up Ash's tracks. Anis asks to join for some reason, which Ion allows since he wants to hear from Ash as well. Reaching St. Bina, the elderly McGovern is surprised to see Luke with short hair. Ash passing himself off as Luke with the excuse of his hair growing fast. Now what kind of idiot would do that? We are then told he went to Sherry Hill. Unfortunately, this part of the game is just a quick barrage of go here and go there. It's not that bad, especially if you're engrossed in the story, which is pretty easy to be in this game. Plus, there is a lot of side stuff in the game, and this part of the game is where you kind of explore most of it. Although there's a lot of timed events that you kind of have to use a guide on. That stuff is kind of easy to miss, especially the timings of the events. At the foot of Shirley Hill, Guy asks Luke if he's afraid of meeting Ash. Then Luke asks him about his father and aunt. In the end, he just accepted that it was just the unfortunate consequence of war, and that at least he was able to learn about the truth of it from the ones involved. That's why he's here helping and why he was with Luke before. They were stopping the war and making sure no more tragedies happen. We entered the passage ring to see a trail of fallen Oracle Knights. In the control panel, Ash is fighting an alive Legretta. Looks like she's determined to fulfill Van's goal. Ash is furious at Luke, who has no clue to what Lorelai's word meant. He doesn't answer what Lorelai said, or what it means, or if Van is still alive along with other god generals. You'd think that's a plot hole, but Ash is just that stubborn. He has the mentality of, if you don't know what you're doing, I'll do it alone. We return to St. Bina with Jade assembling troops. Apparently, Malkuth troops were attacked during training. Unfortunately, we get news of General Frings being heavily injured. We rush to Grand Kokma to where he is, and he was part of the force who was attacked. His wounds are fatal and has a short time left. It's here that he reveals who attacked them, a group of unknown people carrying a Kimlaskan flag. They were using firebombs, and yeah, those. He asks him to take you to our sanctuary, a place of worship and religion. He's afraid of a world without the score, and yet he mentions how free it feels, wanting to live in it longer. He mentions the attacker's dead eyes, pleading with Luke to not allow a war to start. He then passes away, praying to Yulia to bring happiness to the world. There is a herd that's mentioned, but I wasn't able to do his questline with General Cecile. Sorry. At Jade's invitation, we meet with Emperor Peony. Jade reports the situation, and Peony asks Luke to send a message to King Ingobert about the recent events. Luke has been recently doubting himself for being a replica, but Peony, being the great guy he is, just straight up invites him to Malkuth, reminding him of his previous accomplishments and to have confidence. This is an important point, we'll get to it later. Peony also mentions why he's looking for Ash. Witnesses saw him with the key of Lorelai, and if you're perceptive, that was the sword Ash was using when he was fighting against Legretta earlier. They were looking for it as a possible solution to the recently growing activity of the planet storm. Anis then asks Luke what Lorelai said to him about saving him. Find the key and save me. One who would seize glory is trying to trap me. Luke and we, the player, did not know what that meant, but in the ancient Hispanian language that phone mages use, it means Van de Stelka, Van's real name. Luke wasn't taught this language, so he didn't understand what it meant. You'd think Lorelai, who's basically Jesus, would know that. This revelation confirms Van's survival. They're doubting it now, but I'm telling you this now so we don't get confused down the line, okay? Cool? Cool. Peony orders Jade and Guy to join this investigation. Their next destination is Patical, to confirm the actions of the Kimlaskan troops. Anis then excuses herself to send the letter to Ion. At the front of the King's Manor in Patical, we come across Natalia, who grabs Jade by his collar, enraged at the reports of the Kimlaskan forces attacking Malkuth. She is not amused by his usual demeanor either, after the people of Quecedonia eyed her and her soldiers while inspecting the event. We bring King Ingobert and Natalia up to speed with everything, and Jade recounts the attackers having dead eyes similar to Fomicry experience. The attackers are replicas. Along with the escaped Moes, the god generals are trying to restart the war. We head for Doth, with Tyr experiencing a dizzy spell and taken to the cathedral. Tyr's condition worsening because of the planet storm becoming stronger, hence the miasma infected 7 phonons in her body, weakening her. Ion mentions that he may have a solution to Tyr's condition, until...
Ion, we have a problem.
Anis, just where have you been?
That's what I'm saying. We have a serious problem outside.
What's happened?
The miasma's everywhere. It's seriously bad. Ion, please, come quickly.
We then rush outside to see...
What?
Don't move!
Major Lagretta!
What the hell is this?
Arietta storms in, questioning Lagretta about Ion, asking if they really intend for him to read the 7th Phone Stone score, the final part of the score that's obscured and undiscovered, from which the strain from using the energy to transcribe it would ultimately kill Ion. Arietta tells us that Anis has taken Ion to the Sephiroth entrance, and there we find him with Mose. Mose orders Anis to bar us from following them, threatening her with her parents' lives. She reveals that she's been spying for Mose since the beginning. Unfortunately, the glyph serving as the entrance to Mount Zalejo has been disabled, so we need to look for another entrance and use the alveolar to enter the mouth of Mount Zalejo. However, before we could exit outside the entrance, replicas of the dead are being used to prevent us from leaving. Among them, replicas of Guy's sister Mary, General Frings, and Iemon. Most using innocents as human shields with faces familiar to us. Not wanting to harm them, Tyr uses her hymns to put them to sleep. The strain of using it on so much people, sending her to her heels. Not wasting any time, we head to the mouth of the volcano mountain. Since we entered the hottest parts of the mountain,
man, it's hot.
Well, we are inside a volcano. The air seems to burn my throat and lungs with every breath.
Then how come you look so comfortable?
Oh, not at all. I'm so hot I could just die.
You really know how to get on people's nerves.
With Jade quite unbothered.
毎度毎度暑いところに行くと思うが、ジェイドってなんか自分だけ涼しい巫術とか使ってんじゃね？
そうですわね。だんだんそんな気がしてきましたわ。
ずるいですの。
嫌ですね。そんな器用なことができるわけないじゃないですか。
いや、何か秘密があるはずだ。まさかその服に秘密が？
マルクト軍が開発した空冷服なのかもしれませんわね。
脱げ。は？そうだ、脱げ！
ええ、お脱ぎなさい。
脱ぐですの。
皆さん、目が座ってますよ。何を
？30代後半の男性軍人を脱がせるなんて正気とは思えないわよ。暑苦しい。
Yeah, I just really wanted to show that skit, which actually puts me in a good spot to discuss one of the best elements of the game. It's humor. This game has a lot of serious themes: mental health, ethical discussions about killing people, war, religion, just to name a few. But one thing this game never forgets is to make you laugh. The humor from the game mostly springs from, well, Jade mostly, but a lot of the humor comes from either his proclivity to make fun of people, with Anis as his comedy sidekick, or even a lot of times Mew just being cute, Tyr's secret love of cute things, Guy being a nerd and making fun of his, weakness, Natalia's inability to cook. They have a lot of hits, and having voice acting with the skits especially makes these skits so much better. Again, it's a goddamn shame that there's no voice acting for the English skits because, well, the English voice cast is really good. So if this ever gets a remaster, I do hope they record new voice acting for the skits. Now, the importance of levity in stories are a different subject on its own, but I do think that it is important to have these moments. It gives us important breaks from the tension of the story and reminds us that there's a different side to these people we are having a journey with. Carrying on, the volcano is a straightforward set of caves. Everything is weak to water, there are fireballs that arch over and hurt you. There's also that giant lake of lava. Deep in the volcano, a dragon has made this place its home. It's not in a good mood since it's sensing intruders, namely us. With careful maneuvering through its vision, we reach the dragon to, unfortunately, fight it. This thing is a ginormous wall of meat. It has a lot of devastating attacks, with its fireball particularly dangerous. Just keep it away from your casters and don't forget to defend. You'll be fine. After killing the dragon, Luke and Mew expresses guilt for invading its home. Sadly, we need to get through as soon as we can to rescue Ion. We finally reach Ion, but unfortunately, we are too late. He's already reading the score and already sounding weak. Luke rushes in to stop Ion, but he doesn't. Ion prepared for this moment, to give Luke direction and to save Tear from the miasma in her body. Ion falls onto Luke's arms, saying the reading was for him, a single path among many possible futures. His gift to Luke and his wish for the future of the score.
Luke, don't look at me like that. There are plenty of replacements for me.
How can you say that? Those other replicas don't know me at all! You're the only Ion that went to the Cheagle Woods with me.
You're the only Ion that went to the Cheagle Woods with me. He kept that with him, showing how long he keeps gratitude and how he cherishes every memory shared. With his final breath, he takes in Tear's miasma, and with gratitude bids farewell to Anis, his life coming to a tragic end. This isn't Ion surrendering his life. This is how he chose to live, in gratitude and love to the ones who believe him. Mose insults Ion's death as he escapes, claiming that the score provides prosperity to everyone. But in truth, not everyone is provided with victories. Some aren't even given anything. The score has become a farce, used to keep people worshipping the Order of Lorelei rather than be a guiding light to those who are lost. He then uses replicas of non-combatants to block our way, showing how he treats the humanity he claims to want to guide and protect. We take Anis's parents back to Doth. Arietta slaps Anis for her involvement in Ion's capture and eventual death. Enraged, Arietta challenges Anis to a duel. Grief-stricken and angry as well, she accepts the invitation and runs off. When you find her, she reveals that she's been reporting to Mose from the very first time you met. That's how the God Generals knew when and where to always obscure us. She did it because Mose released her father out of a scathing death. She had no choice but to obey. She's hurt by all the times she had to lie to Ion, and all of the times he's put in harm's way because of it. Luke hands off a fragment of the phone stone Ion read, a memento of his life. This and the one scene earlier with Ion, in a game with heavy-hitting emotional scenes, the line, "It hurts to have to lie," kills me. The pain and struggle of a girl torn between betraying her friends, protecting her parents, and betraying the trust of the person she values most. Melissa Fan's performance in this scene moves me to tears. A powerful moment performed beautifully. Having no time to grieve, we decide to head to Belkent, the place hinted from Ion's reading of the score. A plan is also made to hold the summit in place to decide the future of the score. Why don't we go to Sheridan a bit? Check in with that Cheagle from Ocean Cavern. It looks like the Cheagle survived after dying, but something healed him. I don't know, maybe we'll need to find his original somewhere or something. Arriving in Belkent, we witness a man die. A soldier informing us it happened after the man heard their score and the scorer has left for Batikol. Jade surmises that the deaths may have been caused by data being extracted via Fomicry. For now, we decide to speak with Spinoza about the miasma. Spinoza informs of the current situation. The Tartarus is no longer able to suppress the planet's core vibration. Soon, the seas in the Clyphot will become poison mud again. He mentions that in theory, Luke's hyperresonance can be used to remove the miasma. Jade breaks this discussion and asks if Spinoza had visitors before them. Spinoza then mentions that Ash was looking for the planet vibration measurements that were taken from Mount Ronil. Outside the laboratory, Luke asks Jade about using his hyperresonance to remove the miasma. He calls it ridiculous and clarifies how it's impossible, unreasonable, and most of all, immoral. Not only would it kill the user, but to accomplish a hyperresonance on a planetary scale, the user would have to kill 10,000 people who can use or have the potential to use 7 phonons. Jade emphasizes it's impossible and tells Luke to forget about the idea. This discussion continues on in a skit where Jade reminds him that the cost of removing the miasma is 10,000 murders. Then recounts the atrocity and tragedies Luke has had a hand on. And from this, do you remember the first time Luke took a life? He was hesitant, terrified, and horrified that people around him, even his best friend, has no hesitation to kill others in their own defense. Then I remember one thing Jade said before we went off to fight Van.
I know about the nightmares that still wake you in the middle of the night. For you, the fall of Axariuth still isn't a part of the past. On nights when you've killed bandits or Oracle soldiers, you lie there awake, shaking.
I'm a coward.
No, that part of you is something I lack. I still can't really grasp what it means for people to die.
Jade understands what it feels to bear atrocities in his back. He's responsible for Formicry after all. Jade does not want Luke to make this sacrifice because he knows the weight of it may break Luke's spirit. Pursuing Ash in Mount Rainier at the entrance of the passage ring, Luke picks up a locket with Natalia's birth name. This is important for later. And believe it or not, the locket is more important than what Ash has to say. Well, he says almost nothing. He's grumpy Luke didn't receive the jewel. The sword can't act as the key of Lorelei without the jewel. Van is alive because he absorbed Lorelei into himself, helping him to survive and heal his wounds. So, on to Batical to find that renegade scorer. Wow, apparently Mose is in Batical too. Looks like we have to search the city for him. Spoiler alert, he's in the docks. He lumbers along mumbling about something called the Eldron. Dist arrives and Mose asks Dist for the power of the Phone Master. I mean, I would do Graf's power poem from Xenogears, but he's too cool to be associated with Mose. He does turn into a monster affected by that poem though. His face now matches his personality. Mose and Dist leave somewhere. After that confrontation, Luke decides to report to his uncle about the locket he found. But since Luke isn't good at lying, Guy and Jade have to bullshit Natalia into not joining for the discussion with the king. The king confirms that Natalia is indeed the baby on the locket, which Anis mentions Largo owns. After that, we lie to Natalia about the scorer being in Casidonia. Yeah, they didn't get to do that thing with the scorer in Batical, so they have to lie to their friend now.
You're an amazing liar, Colonel. Your smile hasn't budged.
Oh, I assure you, I'm crying on the inside, racked with guilt.
So anyway, the scorer is in Casidonia, and it's unalive Sync. God, no one is dead from the God Generals. Sync is gathering sympathy for their new Order of Lorelei, and Sync uses Ion's voice to get through Anis. Also, remember that these people are getting their replica data taken, so after a few days, whatever future their score will have won't really have any bearing. With Jade bullshitting Natalia and Anis to distract her, we go to Astor to warn him about Sync and to talk to Natalia's nanny, who does confirm that the locket was indeed from Largo. After fetching Natalia and Anis, we're heading to Yulia City. Remember, we're arranging that summit. With the current Order of Lorelei in disarray, Theodora arranges a new leadership under Maestro Time. I told you he'd be important. We also learn from him that they found a location that's expending a lot of 7th phonons, but it's shifting locations. That location is the Isle of Ferris, the island across Hod that joined its destruction shortly after. It's a floating replica facility now, inhabited by monsters and replica soldiers. Arietta is also here. This is where she was born, and it's where her original parents died. Van found the island with Glegreta and converted it as his Formicry facility. Within the mansion, a bigger Formicry machine than what's in Coral Castle. Jade moves in to shut down the facility, but the replicas arrive in protest. Certain of Mo's promise to them of being accepted into a promised land, unmoved by the prospect of their originals dying. For them, they're alive now, and they want to keep living. Tyr reminds Luke that he once had this confidence, a will to live that borders on arrogance. The one good thing his former self had. After defeating Van, he's lost all of that confidence. Because even after all of his accomplishments, for Luke, the fact that he destroyed Axariuth didn't change. Iemon, Tamara, Henken, and Kathy would still be alive. And the one thing he's worrying about, Ash, would still have his place in the world. Never mind that Ash may have died in Axariuth, Luke still believes that maybe he shouldn't have existed at all. Meanwhile, a land rises from the oceans. With it, the god generals and Moes proclaiming the new order of Lorelei. Moes' influence and the people's dependence on the score being used to extract their replica data. The replicas, not being told of this, head to the Tower of Rem, preparing to be taken into the new Hod. The land arisen, a replica of the once destroyed city. Deciding to try to directly head into the Eldrant was clearly a bad idea. They're using the planet Storm to erect a barrier around it. Jade suggests to head to Grand Kokma and ask the military for ideas. After a discussion with a general, we head for Emperor Peony to report our discoveries. On our way there, Moes declares war on the world and inciting the people of Aldrant to create chaos in the name of the score. Moes' mind clearly becoming warped after his transformation. Jade explains the current situation with the lands disappearing due to the appearance of the Eldrant, a replica of Hod. A summit for the score and discussions for a strategy is proposed with Kimlaska, Malkuth, and the Order of Lorelei. We now only need to inform Teodoro about this plan. Outside the palace awaits Largo, who informs Anis where Arietta wants their duel to take place. Chigal Woods, the place where we slew the Mother Liger, who was also the one who raised Arietta. Going to Chigal Forest to respond to Arietta's challenge, Anis decides that she wants to go alone. After some convincing, she decides that she needs to come with everyone after all. You know, people like to meme about the power of friendship and all that stuff. What the does that mean anyway? I guess rightfully so, Kingdom Hearts Persona and a lot of anime did mimify the emotional motivation you can have with relationships. But man, how do you get through things in life? I get that some things in life you just have to deal with yourself, and we all deal with our own struggles differently. We can go to therapy, get some drugs if prescribed and necessary, but at the end of the day, having people you can reliably fall back on, that's great. Arietta waits on the same place we fought the Liger Mother. She claims that killing Anis would be revenge for Ion and her mother, as well as her loyalty to Van. Her motivation is kind of childish. She doesn't even acknowledge that she used her monsters to kill a lot of people. She doesn't even attempt to look into things deeper. She really is just a child, and Van has twisted her mind to the point that she's got no other way to live. I don't care if you say she's a trained soldier, but dude, Van saw her and trained her as a soldier after seeing her ability to communicate with monsters. It is not normal for you to train a little girl in war even with that ability. The fight with Arietta isn't that hard, but she does cast spells at an alarming speed. Either go for the Liger or Arietta. The Liger has a lot of mobility and loves to interrupt your casters, and Arietta is a powerful mage on her own. She is nerfed a bit because for some reason her mystic art is replaced with evil light, which in comparison to Big Bang, her previous one, isn't as threatening. We finally defeat her, and Largo reveals that Arietta fought for her goals and her beliefs. That she fought for her debt to Ion, Van, and the monsters. That nothing could stop her. But the thing is, she is still a child. The only reason she acted that way was because Van trained her to be that way. It's awful. Luke hands Largo the locket he found in Mount Ranil, calling him by his real name, Badak. Largo says that the name died with his wife long ago, and that he'll kill them the next time we meet. The next destination is to Yulia City, and to inform Theodora of the summit. On its entrance, a person is shivering in the corner. It's a replica, a refugee from Sheridan. A watcher from the city informs us of the situation, how replicas of the dead appear on their own funerals, some of them being blamed for the deaths of the originals. Some replicas newly born with no basic knowledge, unable to even defend themselves. It's an awful situation created by Van and his followers, who just let the replicas roam with no guidance. After telling Theodora about the summit, we head directly to Batico. There are more replicas here. On our way to the castle, a man is distressed over a replica that appears before him. It's a replica of his friend, one who died weeks ago, the replica instinctively going to Batico as his last memory. After this altercation, the replica utters the Tower of Rem and walks away. The tower that's apparently made in an attempt to escape to another planet. Well, I'm quite fond of that Tales of story that went to another planet, but that's a different hour or so long video for another time. In front of the castle, people are protesting, yelling for the king to give in to the new order of Lorelei. They're afraid of the miasma, afraid of not having the score, afraid of the replicas. They describe the replicas as human things, confused of what they are and where they came from. This moniker sticks out to Luke. Natalia pleads with the citizens, promising to ask the new order of Lorelei for help if they can't remove the miasma. Ingobert updates us on the situation in Batico. The number of refugee replicas becoming too many to accept, with one appearing on their own funeral causing a riot that led to several deaths. And, well, there's also this.
It seems they're headed to a place called the Tower of Rem. Many have already left. But between clashes with the citizens and the stress on the economy, they caused quite an uproar. There were enough of them for an entire country, and the majority couldn't speak a word. Some people tried to snatch up replicas for untoward purposes.
Christ, man. With the summit agreed upon by the three leaders of the world, Ingobert proposes military action against Moses' new order of Lorelei. He asks everyone to rest in Luke's manor for the time being while the summit is being prepared. Luke also mentions the different task to the king. You already know what that is. Luke confirms Natalia's biological father, with Ingobert worried that Natalia will have to battle Largo in the future. Everyone suggests and agree with telling Natalia about Largo. For now, the king asks for time to mull things over. With some free time, Jade decides to head back to Grand Kokma to plan for a policy on the summit. Ash then uses brain communication and peeks through Luke's eyes, saying they need to meet up. Luke forces Ash to meet in the manor, their childhood home. Ash tells us he ran into a dead end with the search for the Jewel of Lorelei, with him worried about the miasma, swaying the citizens to support the new order of Lorelei. Luke mentions the possible solution to the miasma, implying he would risk his life. It's here that this one memory returned, that he would die for Axarius. And as Jade said before, for Luke, Axarius is not a part of the past. It's in his conscience forever. Ash is incensed with Luke, saying it would be convenient for a replica to just throw his life away. Luke then drags Ash in front of their parents, giving them the opportunity to see their first son for the first time in 7 years. Tyr asks Luke if he's okay with Ash returning to his original home. He confesses his fear, his feeling of inferiority, that he's an imposter, that he would rather have his biggest fear of learning he's unneeded be confirmed as soon as possible. Guy ignites with anger with Luke's recent behavior and the mention of the solution to the miasma, figuring out that Luke wants to sacrifice himself to destroy the miasma. Luke is confused and worried, with questions that hovered around his head since he learned he was a replica. Guy scolds Luke, and Ash intervenes as well, proclaiming he's not Luke anymore, telling Luke harshly to get over his inferiority complex. Guy suggests to turn in for the night. In the morning, both Kim Laska and Malkuth agree to shut down the planet storm, as informed by Jade and Natalia, who worked on convincing both countries. If you're wondering why they needed permission to do that, basically the planet storm is where all the magic in this world comes from. So it's a really big deal. With this, all that remains is the formal summit in Dath. On our way outside, Spinoza storms in, mentioning that Ash asked about using his hyperresonance to remove the miasma, planning to use the replicas to substitute the amount of energy needed to trigger a planet-wide reaction. A feat that's ensured to kill the one who attempts it along with all the replicas he's going to use. So we need to rush to the Tower of Rem, where the replicas are gathering. Within the tower, a mass of replicas, waiting for Moses' promised land. A promise that's never going to be fulfilled, their eyes blank, having no individuality, result of imbuing basic human function into a replica. A member of the Dark Wings, who were hired by Ash, by the way, I forgot to mention that, confirmed that Ash is indeed planning to use his hyper-resonance and the replicas to remove the miasma. Unfortunately, we can't use the elevator, so to the stairs we go. Along the stairs are the other two members of the Dark Wings. They're looking for Ash too. They reveal that Natalia is Ash's reason to stubbornly go through this plan, to prevent Natalia's kingdom from being swallowed by the miasma. He also mentions that he doesn't have much time yet, planning to take the miasma as he goes. Fortunately, we do find a service lift that takes us farther up the tower. Unfortunately, it lands us to a puzzle that I took too long to solve. It involves opening doors and collecting orbs for energy. After solving quite a long puzzle, it's not that hard, I was just confused. We finally have access to the elevator. Coincidentally, the lift that we crash into have the replicas of Mary, Frings, and Iemon, refusing to be used by Ash and awaiting salvation with the promise of a land of their own. This arrives, revealing Mose never intended to fulfill his promise, and guns down some of the replicas. His goal is to eradicate them. This reveals he's still obsessed with reviving Professor Nebelim, unable to move on from the death of their mentor and the changes his friends grown into. Jade expresses his regret in not killing this before, and we fight. It's not much of a long fight. This very much just upgraded his robot. Still a bit resistant to physical attacks, so you'll have to do your best to keep it occupied while your casters do their best to bring it down. With this defeated, he reinforces that Mose will never fulfill his promise. Mary laments that her kind has nowhere left to go. Luke says that they're not supposed to live in this era as replicas. Tyr argues that it's the world's fault if they're not accepted. But Guy does remind them that some of the replicas did arrive in the expense of their originals, reminding that some people won't be able to accept them. Ash arrives, asking Mary for a decision, with Mary wanting to decide with the other replicas who are able to think. The Dark Wings tell us they're going back to Dath with Ash. With Ash still determined to proceed with his plan, to use his and the lives of the replicas to remove the miasma. Luke still thinks that Ash, as the original, have to be the one to save Lorelei. Jade asks him if he really believes it to be so, and Luke answers yes. But Jade kind of acts worried. When I got back to writing about this point of the story, I kind of broke down. I stopped, wiped the tears from my face, and busied myself with something else. I have seen this many times before, but it doesn't stop being heartbreaking. The plan to neutralize the miasma reached the three rulers. They all agree to the severe absurdity of the plan and the tragedy it would cause. Natalia protests to her father, and Jade subtly suggests for Luke to be the one to go on with the plan. Guy protests. Jade understands both Natalia and Guy's objections, even stating that he feels the same way, but the miasma has spread so far that delaying a solution would only lead to turmoil from the people and more casualties of life. Tyr, the one who swore to watch over Luke and see through his journey, begs them not to make him choose. During this time, Luke is given time to think through this plan. Natalia acknowledges Luke's existence as her other childhood friend, validating the years that Luke has lived as a son of House Fabre, and that she needs the support of her friend to make her dream country real. Guy vehemently opposes, wanting Luke to fight for his life, wanting him to live longer. But he understands why this needs to be done, and it hurts him to see that his best friend is only given 7 years to live. And Tyr, Luke confesses his fears to her, but acknowledges what decision he'll make, promising to stand beside him, but swearing to hate him if he dies. even if everyone in the world heralds him as a hero. It's hard to explain how this ultimately makes me feel. I cry when I heard their protests and their feelings. But for some people, they'll just say, it's just a video game, get over it. But if you don't feel for these characters, if you don't experience their story, what's the point even? I understand that not all games have stories that are stellar or emotional or impactful. Some people just want to push some buttons to get their stress off of things. I get that. I used to watch this streamer who always cries on their streams and gets brutally derided by people for some reason. But I think that's an honest and frankly admirable way of enjoying a piece of fiction. Being swept away by the emotions brought to you by the things that touch your heart is how I wish I can enjoy all the pieces of art I experience. On our way to return to the three rulers, we run into Ash, who returns from Dot's passage ring. Luke and Ash argue again. Luke trying to stop Ash from offering his life in exchange for his. Luke wants for Ash to take his place back, the life that Luke inadvertently stole. This ends in an altercation that Jade has to stop, in the danger that they may cause another Axeriuth. Ash leaves and we return to the three rulers with Luke's decision. Theodoro lamenting that they must order Luke to die. Peony carrying the weight of the order, choosing to do so for the sake of his countrymen, and Ingobert, as his uncle, is still opposed to this, being the one who've already sent him to die once. Asks Luke to do this for them. It is here that Theodoro reveals something about the score.
Ironic. The Tower of Rem was built at the center of a mining town on the QB Peninsula. If Luke succeeds, he will have fulfilled the score.
ND 2018. The young scion of Lorelei's power shall bring his people to the miner's city.
There, the youth will turn power to calamity and be as a weapon of Kimlaska, destroying himself and the city.
It's just like Van said. Deviations are as nothing before the score.
With this, the three apologize to Luke, with Ingobert promising to not find him if he decides to escape. It is brutally heartbreaking to see Luke question his own worth. He's lost with no self-worth, contemplating that maybe this is his destiny, that maybe this is all he'll be worth. And yet, he's afraid to die. He wants to learn his place in the world, but he can't move past all of the things he's done wrong, and his origin as a replica made to replace someone to prevent their death. We arrive back in the Tower of Rem, where Mary cradles a replica refugee in her arms. The replica was a victim of exploitation and persecution. Mary clarifies why they agreed to this, so their kind can have a place on this land as their originals did. A small hope in exchange for their lives. Ash arrives to gather them together, Luke stopping him, asking to take his place as he's unneeded. Ash explodes.
That's enough! Unneeded? I did not have everything stolen from me by someone unneeded! Don't insult me!
This is where we understand Ash and his attitude towards Luke. He decided to do this because he no longer feels like he has a place where he used to be. That's why he's angry at Luke all the time. Ash sees Luke as ungrateful that his life has far expanded into something he'll never be anymore. Because at the end of the day, Ash Luke knocks away Ash and Jade holds him back. As Luke channels his hyper-resonance, we hear his thoughts, wanting to live for himself. Luke's power wanes, but noticing Luke had the Jewel of Lorelei inside him all along, Ash boosts his power so he can continue removing the miasma. The miasma disappears, with Ash and Luke still alive. Natalia, Guy, and Anis swearing a place for Mary's kind. As we leave, Ash still refuses to join our party because, well, his reasoning is sound. The God Generals will just chase them. And he leaves. Jade, worried about the amount of power Luke just used, asks him to do a full examination in Belkan. The doctor puts it bluntly, he's dying. The miracle above the Tower of Rem only postponing his death. Luke decides to not tell everyone, choosing to enjoy the remaining days of his life, no matter how brief. Jade sees through this and warns him not to use his power unless absolutely necessary. Miu hears this conversation and tells Tyr what he heard in Batikul when we reconvened for the day. In his room, Luke is contemplating what time he has left, until Tyr confronts him about his condition. Luke choosing not to tell everyone else to avoid referential treatment that would remind him of his limited time. He confides with Tyr, revealing his fear, and she asks him to never hide things from her again. The morning comes, and the soldier informs us of an emissary of the new Order of Lorelei. It's Largo. With their proposal of surrender rejected, he accepts this as a declaration of war against them. Also, there's this cool moment where Duke Fabre acknowledges both Luke and Ash as his sons, so that's pretty cool. As Largo leaves, Ingobert calls everyone to his chambers to reveal to Natalia the truth of her birth and who her biological father is. Natalia is in shock and chases Largo down to the docks, aiming an arrow at him. He reveals why he joined Van, that a scorer told Largo and his wife that they must have a child even at her poorer health. Then when the child was taken from her, Largo resented the score on how no matter how you avoid it, since it's part of the planet's memory, all events will still move on how the planet remembers it. Natalia tries to tell Largo what she knows, but for him, his daughter died and was lost with his wife. Back in Ingobert's chambers, he gives Natalia the option to no longer join the fight against the Order. Ultimately, she decides to think on it while we travel. Now, it's off to find a way to stop the planet storm, which means meeting in Yulia City. The people need a bit of time to learn what they need to do to stop the planet storm, so for now, we separate again. Talking to everyone as Luke is mostly a parade of how Luke is blind and dense around Tyr. In Tyr's room is her and Natalia. Natalia confiding with Tyr, asking her how she felt when she learned of Van's plans. Tyr tells her about the confusion and anger when she learned of his plans and the fear of their first confrontation. It's a very heartwarming scene of the two characters who eventually need to face their own family on the other side of the conflict, a position Tyr has held since the story began. Luke returns to the meeting room and we get fully briefed on the Jewel of Lorelei's properties and what we need to do. Yes, I just put all the briefing in. What of it? At the bottom of the absorption gate is, basically every important character, beholden to the resurrection of Van. It looks like they made a new replica of Ian as well. Van is expositing that he sang Julia's hymn to lure Lorelei into him, ultimately restoring his physical form. Van then asks both Ash and Luke to join him, and they both refuse. You know, it's funny. Van didn't have any faith that Luke, as a replica, would be able to become as strong as he is now. But here he is trying to destroy the world and replace all its citizens with replicas. Replicas he does not have any faith on. It makes you think, what if the replicas eventually rebel? What if they don't fit with Van's vision after he makes his new world? Largo then puts himself in the way to help Van escape. Largo, enraged by the people's dependence on the score and the lives they sacrificed for it, convinced that the original world must be purged to free the people from the planet's memory. Okay, so the dude has super armor, but he eventually staggers after a few hits, and the tank with no support characters isn't really as good as a tank in a full team. As we defeat him, Largo bids farewell to his daughter, Natalia, calling her father for the first and last time. Below, Luke uses the Jewel of Lorelei to close the absorption gate and see himself in a vision within the planet's memory. He sees how Van fell into the core and how he restored Sync to life. With this connection to the core, Luke is also able to see what Ash sees and communicates with him. Ash shuts him down and he awakens to alarm the others. We chase Sync away to hear Ion's replica read the score. Mose learns of the end of Aldrent from the 7th phone stone and basically doesn't have a positive reaction to it, his mind deteriorating into insanity. Attempting to attack Luke, Lorelei temporarily awakens and emits some kind of force, Well, I think that's what happens. The screen kinda just flashes 3 times. He then escapes and leaves Ion's replica. Anis suggests we take him to Doth. Anis names the replica Florian. He's a nice boy. Sadly, most of his story is in the side quests. But believe me, he is a good boy. With no time to waste, we head to the radiation gate, arriving safely with the efforts of Noel. You know, it's really funny. They have a short conversation about the use of power and how it can be abused, noting that a person could easily use such power to destroy. That is true for Luke, but it's doubly so for the next boss fight. Mose, who's totally lost it. The man is just blindly following the score, leaving many traumatized, injured, maimed, or dead. He coaxed Ingobert to wage war on both sides unwilling, exposed Natalia's true birth parents in the hopes of bringing the king against their side, creating replicas that are willing to give their lives for a promise of prosperity, and then eventually abandoning them. Mose is a monster, and he deserves this end. After a military briefing in Grand Kokma, running into Ash on our way to Cassidonia to prepare for the final battle. Luke tries to hand him the jewel, probably because he knows he's going to die. Luke still does believe that he's inferior to Ash, and this just sets him off. He hurls insults at Luke, goading for a fight. In the end, to determine who really was Van's student, the one with the responsibility to stop Van, Ash challenges Luke to a duel on the Eldrant. In Cassidonia, we're given 24 hours to rest before the final battle. Everyone gets a moment for themselves. Natalia and Guy talk about Ash. Jade and Anis talk about what they'll do after the battle ends. The third arc of the game is my favorite. After defeating Van for the first time, Luke no longer feels he has a place in the world, utterly lost in what to do next. These thoughts fester in his mind, coalescing into depression and an inferiority complex. Even though he didn't have the means to actually fully understand what Lorelai's message meant, he still beat himself over it. Luke finally discovers his lease in life, but he no longer has any time to enjoy it. Other than Jade, who already knows he is dying, Luke elects to not tell everyone because he's worried. Everyone would treat him like, well, he's dying. But in this moment, he looks at the moon with tear and...
Weird. I'm really happy right now. I have friends, and you? I can finally think of myself as me. This is probably the happiest moment of my life.
What?
I mean, I wish I could think it wouldn't be.
The happiest moment in Luke's life is realizing that he's obtained everything he needs. Finally acknowledging who he is. Eldrant is a barrage of boss battles. First up is Lagreta, who fights for her loyalty and her beliefs that she shares with Van, earnestly believing that they have to destroy the original world to create a new world of free will, ironically surrendering her own to Van. This fight is basically just an upgrade of your last fight against her, only with additional arts and the occasional mystic art. Her defeat reveals her true feelings, fighting alongside Van, not just sharing beliefs, but also her affection. Her love pushing her to put her life on the line for him. In the end, defeated by her own student and Van's sister. The next fight is Luke's fated duel against Ash. Like the other times you fought Ash before, Luke needs to fight Ash alone. Ash still not accepting to go in his place, resenting the time he lost and the identity Luke took from him. With the best, most thematic battle theme, meaning of life. A battle to settle once and for all who is the one looking into the mirror and who is the reflection. This battle pretty much functions the same way it did the few times you fought Ash. He has the same moveset but will hit you with spells if you run too far. We learn that he's going to disappear as well, like Luke, and after the battle, he just lets Luke go. And now, surrounded by enemies, he proclaims his birth name against them. Valiantly, he fends off hordes of soldiers, but then Ash is stabbed in the back, using the last of his strength to tell Luke,
It looks like I I had a little trouble. The rest is up to you.
Ash is now dead. Natalia is shocked and unable to move from this news. Seeing this weakness, Sync unleashes a trap that Luke destroys with his now complete hyper-resonance. Now, Sync appears before you. His hatred for the score born of his creation as a test subject, rejected and cast aside, not fit to replace the Phone Master. He had no will, no life that he made. As a replica, he didn't dare create a new life for himself, only dedicated it to support Van and his goal to destroy the score. Now, Sync's fight is kind of a pain. All of his melee arts are arcane arts, things that you can't normally do unless you exploit the game's FOF mechanic. There's a lot of telltale signs when he's going to do this, so just heal accordingly and don't let him reach your healer or caster. After the fight, Jade reminds Natalia of what we need to do, and after accepting Ash's death, we receive the complete key of Lorelei. All that remains now is Van. So, I have some very interesting observations for our Palpatine. Van is interesting as a character as he's posited as some kind of hero in his own story. Look at his sword even. It's near a replica of the hero's sword in Dragon Quest. Part of his goal is even killing God to free the people from the influence of the score. Now, part of this plan is genociding an entire planet and running it into your grandfather's photocopier, but let's get one thing clear. His motive to kill Lorelei to release people from the score, that's not because of an altruistic reason to free people from their dependency of the score. If that was the case, there is no need to replace everyone with replicas. Hell, Luke put him to shame by being the force to sway a lot of people away from depending on the score. He's doing this because of revenge. Because to him, the tragedy of Hoth wasn't yesterday. The war took his home and everything he ever loved. He's lashing out on the world. Even with his own sister trying to stop him, his anger is so ingrained against the world, he has to create the new world even with the cost of his own blood, relationships, and even allies. The fight with Van isn't your typical RPG final boss. He mostly fights like the first time you fought him, only with additional moves like the other god generals you fought before him. His second form isn't even a Grandois monstrous form, he just gains a spiffy new arm and lets down his hair. But that doesn't mean it's easy. At normal difficulty, he hits like a truck. In this second form, his mystic art that has quite a bit of range is guaranteed fatal damage all the time. And yes, if you did not notice the change of costumes and party members, I did have to redo this fight quite a few times. The end of the fight treats you to the full Grand Phonic hymn, with the game allowing you to fight, ending with Luke using Radiant Howl, and finally defeating Van. The defeat of Van makes the Elrond unstable, and Luke needs to stay to free Lorelei. Everyone says their goodbyes, and their wishes for Luke to survive and come home, ending with a sweet confession from Tyr. The freed Lorelei congratulates Luke, and with a flash of light, we are treated to the credits. Images of the characters as children, and to when they've become adults. Again, we see Tyr singing the Grand Phonic hymn, a view of the broken Elrond from where the journey first began. Everyone waiting for Luke at Tataru Valley. A silhouette of a man appears, his red hair lit by moonlight. Luke has come home, free to live the rest of his life. I started playing this game on a whim. I had no end goal. I just wanted to play it. We live our lives. We study, we work, we play, we make mistakes. We make up for those mistakes. We improve, but after all that, the feeling of not doing enough always lingers. The people around you welcome you, but sometimes you still feel like you have no place in this world. We live very small, very brief lives. But there's a lot of us that wallow in our own mistakes instead of seeing the best moments of our lives. I wish you all well. I hope that some way, like Luke, we find something that makes our lives content. I hope we find our place in this world. I think this game is so much better now. This game is filled with so much love and care, and I think everyone should play it. I'm looking forward to seeing this game again someday. I hope that remaster has been released or announced the day this video releases. I wish we all can experience this on our own someday. I hope it was worth all the small videos I made. There's a lot more of this game I didn't mention, like the first time you go to the casino, or the many lighthearted character moments, the best crossover boss battle in any video game, the secret boss that will destroy your brain. This game is just a lot, man, and I really do hope we have that remaster by now or something. Anyway, if you're in a place where you think you've done wrong, or if you're lost, I believe we can change. We just need to start small and do what we can right now.